All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the TSG podcast. I'm your host, Coach Arian, and I have a special guest with me again today. Coming back to the TSG podcast, welcome, Coach Henrik.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for having me back. Really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I brought you back, which I told you off the call, is that of the episodes we've done so far, you are the most watched, the most popular episode. So I was like, okay, I have to bring Henrik back on. His opinions and statements always get people, I guess, going, and that's why you are the most popular episode.
I will try to keep it up. I will obviously tell everyone in Germany about it so that they keep watching. Yeah, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that it's like 100,000 degrees in here, but we were talking about before. For you, that's every day in Miami. For me, that's just survival one day at a time.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, thanks again for coming on. For this episode, we're talking about the recent IPF Classic World Powerlifting Championships that just occurred. So, we want to get right into kind of like doing a recap of it, but not just the standard recap that people do, just kind of going weight by weight class, saying who kind of won. We kind of want to like analyze a little bit deeper. That's another reason why I wanted you on to be like, kind of, hey, we're like elite powerlifting coaches and we're analyzing this elite world championship. What kind of things did we notice that people can then take to maybe improve their training or improve their game plan going forward? So trying to give a little bit more insight. With that said, we can't do a deep dive of every single weight class on the men's and women's side. So if someone's looking for that, we're not going to spend 3 hours going into every single weight class, every single little detail. We're going to try and go over things that maybe we noticed that are interesting, maybe things that we are a part of since we had clients competing in the championship as well. And then the other disclaimer I want to say as well is that when we're breaking this down, for some of the athletes and for some of the weight classes, we don't know what their game plan was going in. We don't know what their goal was for the championship. We don't know if they were dealing with the injury or not. So we're not sitting back here saying, oh, we know it all and these people are stupid, whatever. We're just going over our perspective from the outside looking in. What do we think caused the placing to happen in the way it did in certain weight classes and ways that maybe it could have played out differently? So I guess we'll start off kind of, if you want to give Hendrik maybe some of your ideas of from the overall championship, what did you notice from this year, maybe compared to different years?
Okay, so starting on a high note, I noticed that Team Great Britain had an awesome competition. Um, I did the calculations. If I'm correct, they made 7.8 out of 9 attempts over all their 16 lifters, which is, I mean, if on this level, this is a lot. Like, this is really a lot because you have a lot of battle for placings, etc. And when I watched the competition, I just had the feeling that in every weight class or for every athlete, they had a clear game plan. Um, and even at some point, it didn't turn out so well. Like Jurin's Kengamu, 5 out of 9. I think he was injured. I don't really know, but that didn't work out. And Sulaiman in the 120s, like he took, I think, big jumps in squat and deadlift, and at least in deadlift it didn't pan out. So he lost a lot of kilos. But again, like if you have 16 lifters, that is to be expected that it doesn't work for everyone. But generally speaking, they just did amazing, had a lot of great placements. They weren't not yet able to beat the US in team points, but they came awfully close.
Well, what I was going to bring up as well, since you brought them up, is we can go more in depth into the team points and the best lifter at the end. But for the women's side, Great Britain did end up winning
Oh,
the
okay.
overall team. People can make different reasons or whatever. Like one thing, Amanda Lawrence obviously pulling out of the competition really hurt USA. That could have been 12 points there. And then there were some weight classes that didn't go the way US wanted it. On the flip side, there were some weight classes like Joy Namai in the 57s and then Ziana in the 84s that went their way and flipped it. So for Great Britain as a team overall, they did great based on what you said as far as game planning, attempt selection. From what I've heard, they seem like more of a team at the championship, rooting for each other and anything like that. But then also for the overall teams on the women's side, Great Britain did get the upset over USA, and on the men's side, they did get the second place, which had gone a few years in a row. So it's good that they got first and second, and especially on the women's side, I was kind of posting about it before the championship, like, hey, US regularly wins the women's and men's side, but they are at risk of losing this year. And do people think they're going to lose? And people were voting in my poll on my Instagram stories that they thought US was going to lose. And it kind of came down to final day of the 84 plus, where Great Britain had two athletes, US had one athlete, and Great Britain scored enough points to then steal that first place.
Yeah, nothing more to add, really. It's really hard on the men's side to beat the US just because there is at least like 3 weight classes where they're so dominant. Like Jesus is always winning, Austin is always winning. So to beat them there is really hard. And obviously you need a little bit of luck, as you just explained on the women's side. So it's just great that it's getting more competitive, because in 2025 there was a lot of talk about a sweep, like winning all 8 weight classes for the US, and they won 4 on the men's side, which is half. And the women's side especially is, I mean, it has been a couple of years already, but it's so competitive, like with so many nations. It's really just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I know, yeah, on the men's side for the US team, first they talk about the sweep, and then it turns from the sweep to like, oh, well, we'll get the 5 golds because that's like your main team is the best 5. So, okay, we'll get 12 points and get 60 points. And then it turns out where we didn't even get the 5 golds, we got 4 golds and a silver. So we got 57 points. So not quite the dominant performance that we were hoping for as Americans, but obviously still the men's side. We have a lot of strong athletes. And while there are a lot of nations, some nations don't bring a full team, so they don't have the depth to kind of keep up. I'm seeing that there was 54 nations that were competing, but a lot of them had, 1, 2, 3 athletes. So they kind of can't keep up with the power that US brings.
So another point that I noticed at these World Championships is the new heaving rule in the bench press, which was introduced this year. And I want to say I quite like the application, like how it's judged. And I also feel that I understand the rule, like I understand what it does, and I can see it most of the time when it is happening. So heaving is a rule where you basically are not allowed to thrust your upper body up before you start pressing. So for me personally, an indicator is always if the upper body moves before the arms. That is an indication that there's this thrusting going on. It is not necessarily the case. It's obviously hard against the sink-in bench press technique because they're very similar, and sink-in is not forbidden. But I feel this rule makes sense, and I think the judges generally applied it how I understood it. And that is in sharp contrast to the other bench press rule, which is elbow depth, which is really, especially on the women's side, most women don't even miss on strength anymore. Like the game plan is more or less get two valid lifts in bench press in. And from a spectator perspective, it is so hard. And not even from a spectator perspective, even from a judging perspective. Like I know the judges that I talk to all the time, we all don't know what to do, seriously. And that is also why I brought up the heaving rule before, because in my opinion, heaving, there's a concept, maybe it could be described a little bit better in the rule book, but I think the concept is clear. And elbow depth is just a menace, and everyone is getting frustrated. And to highlight this point, Arian and I are obviously in group chats together for TSG. And Arian is a very measured, calm person and more like descriptive, never really judgy. And at the end of the championship, at one point he said, I didn't watch anymore, I got so annoyed. So if that happens, then we are in trouble. And I heard at a lot of places that the enjoyment, yeah, suffered from this rule.
Yeah, I get what you're saying when it comes to the upper body thrust. I didn't necessarily think about it that way initially because I was always looking at more of like the leg drive because you're like actively pushing with your legs, which then moves the upper body, which then moves the bar. So I was a lot of times looking at people's leg drive and seeing, oh, well, this person's moving their legs a lot and their hips a lot and not getting called for upper body thrust, and other people were. But it's interesting how you're explaining, or you're looking just more at the torso itself and seeing the movement of the torso before the elbows.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Tom Konertz, president of the German Federation, about this 2 days back. And he also looked at it differently than I did. And I think with a new rule that is completely justified. And as I said, like the description in the rule book could be a little bit better. But with this rule, I think we are getting where we want to go with this rule. And I think also it's a correct rule because it's called a press. And especially with very mobile athletes, they can do so much with reducing range of motion so that there's barely any movement of the arms anymore. And I think that is against the spirit of the bench press. With elbow depth, I also understand what they are trying to do. I just think the point on the shoulders that we should use as a reference is just too low. Because what we wanted to achieve is eliminate very, very short range of motion bench presses. But when Jessica Büttner in the 84s, who is the deadlift specialist of all deadlift specialists, if she gets a red light because of elbow depth, actually she gets an attempt, her third attempt was unsuccessful because of this. This is not what the rule wanted to do. So, and I think it is so important to acknowledge that smaller human beings, and this is mostly females, very often in powerlifting, like below 5'2" or 160, 158 centimeters, they have shorter arms, they have shorter everything. We are forcing so much internal rotation on them. And it's not safer or better like to reduce the arch, and like obviously you can reduce it a little bit, but you don't want them to lie flat on the bench because that is unsafe, because it's just not using your body as a whole unit that it should be. And I really hope that we find better solutions going forward, because also, sorry that I'm on this for so long, but
No, go ahead.
I realize what it does to me as a watcher, because, or especially when I'm in a competition with someone, I look at their bench press, I see it's borderline, and I hope for them to get a red light, because, well, that's not clearly not okay. So they should get red light, and if they don't get it, then I feel a little bit cheated. But on the other hand, I lose, and because the rule has been there for 2 or 3 years, I have lost, or I'm losing more and more the perspective of where this is an okay bench press. I shouldn't be mad just because this athlete is just stronger than my athlete, which I'm competing now with, just because there is 1.5 centimeters, less range of motion as it should be. So again, I definitely don't want the 2 centimeter bench press range of motion back. Definitely not. But I think we can find a better place on the shoulder, especially if we are good with the upper body thrusting rule in implementing it. Those two rules together, I think, can actually solve a lot of our problems. There will always be subjectivity in applying the rules. That is, you cannot write a perfect rule book. If you follow enough sports, you know this to be true. We all want this, but it's very, very hard.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, how that's the same thing was kind of sold to us when when the rule first came out on elbow depth is in the US, was a lot of the people that are part of the IPF were saying, hey, we don't want these people that have a very short range of motion or no range of motion, where some people were able to arch and grip the bar in a way where they can just retract their shoulders to get down to their torso, and then protract their shoulders and be locked out and never even bend their elbows. So they're like, hey, this is what we want to get rid of. And okay, cool. But now the way the rule is implemented and what we're seeing in reality is that it's not just attacking those people, it's attacking a much larger population, all the way up to kind of what you said, like a Jessica Bittner, who has very long arms, doesn't have a huge arch, is known as a deadlift specialist, is not a big bencher. And then you're seeing this long range of motion, and then she's getting called for elbow depth. And you're like, okay, well, this person has, you know, whatever you want to call it, 2 feet, 3 feet, well, a meter long range of motion, and somehow you're calling an elbow depth. It's not 1 centimeter. And so, yeah, it's something weird that's going on. And the other thing too is, which happens in squat as well. For example, in squat, if you push your knees forward more, well, now the top of your knees lower, you have to then go lower. Now in bench press, if you tuck your elbows more, your elbow is going to be higher and you have to go down lower, versus people that keep their elbows flared out more, then their elbows at a lower point. So now also you're like hurting people that do tuck their elbows more and want to touch lower in their torso, maybe to protect their shoulder. Now their elbow is kind of angled sideways rather than pointed down, and then they're going to call for that. So now, are you going to tell those people, or are those people naturally going to adjust and try and do elbows more flared out with a smaller arch to hit elbow depth, and then like hurt themselves? So now we're putting maybe people at a more higher rate of injury risk of their shoulders because they're trying to change all this stuff to hit the elbow depth. So it is weird the way they're calling it for some lifters that don't have a super big arch and short range of motion. And I don't know if we can make an adjustment. Like, I wonder if we changed it to just the front of the anterior deltoid. So we change it to the highest point in the shoulder so we don't have to go down as far. I wonder if that would then still do the job they wanted, where it gets rid of people who do like no range of motion, but then also it's easier for a lot of people to hit the proper depth.
One disclaimer to what you just said. Until now, I haven't observed in my athletes a higher injury risk at bench press. So I think about this too, that maybe that's the case, but it's not observable, at least for now. But I still think it looks sometimes unnatural what these people have to do nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why for me, yeah, maybe hip thrust hasn't been as big of an issue yet, or at least not for the specific championship. But overall, just putting the hip thrust together with the elbow depth and how inconsistent elbow depth was, for me, it was just like maybe bench press already isn't the most interesting lift for me out of the three. And then now it's just being more annoying as far as the calls, or maybe they get 2-to-1 good lift and the jury like overturns it immediately without like giving any benefit of doubt to the lifter, especially if they have a longer range of motion. And it's just a lot of like back and forth of what was the issue if it is for hip thrust, because the infraction cards sometimes now are so many different things when it's like a yellow card that maybe the lifters don't know what's going on, the announcers don't know what's going on, and so then we're just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, annoyed, confused, and then that could very negatively affect the rest of the competition if someone only gets one bench press in. I think one person bombed out on elbow depth and hip thrust, and so for me, just, yeah, it made it less fun. Like, I wasn't interested in watching as much because of how variable the calls were from session to session and how active the jury was, those kind of things.
I have, I think, 5 more thoughts on this topic, but I think we have spent enough time on this
Yeah.
and it's too negative. So I have one more point, and I would really love to hear your perspective on it, because it is more by feeling and not like in statistical analysis. But I thought at the highest, at the highest level of lifting, like the highest totals, I don't fear that they are going up as much anymore. So I think in total, we had 23 world records over both sexes, and this includes all 3 lifts plus overall. So I don't think that is a very high number. But I felt that the level of lifting at the edge classes, so like 47s, 59s, 66, 120 plus 120, has improved drastically. And generally speaking, so obviously the totals are still going up, but they're not going up very quickly anymore. Parenthesis, I don't think this is just because of Sheffield. This is more Austin Perkins problem. But I think at this point in time, there are no weaker weight classes anymore. Like 2 years back, 47s was a Tiffany show. Obviously, there were two or three, but they are not always at the same time. And when you get to rank 4, 5, 6, it was really down. But now every weight class has exciting storylines and stuff. That was my feeling.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense that as the sport grows and more people come in, sure, we're seeing a lot of growth and rapid numbers as far as the increasing totals and stuff, but eventually it's going to level off. Eventually, you're not going to just keep going exponentially up. So it's going to be harder and harder to push up some of the records, individual lifts and totals, especially maybe for individual lifts. It's harder for someone who's a specialist to make it to an international competition and break a record because now there's maybe more depth at the national championships and they can't even make it to international championship. And then there may be other things like, yeah, you may not think Sheffield has the biggest effect, but maybe some people are holding back on individual lifts or totals to save it for Sheffield. But that is like, yeah, maybe just a certain percentage depending on how stacked the weight class is or isn't. So it could just be a combination of those things, I think. But it's nice to see, like you said, that even though maybe the first place person isn't getting higher and higher and just destroying records every single time, we're seeing more overall depth throughout the weight classes, and especially some of the more extreme weight classes where it's harder to find the depth. So again, like the 47, sometimes there would be 10 or fewer athletes at the world championship. So sometimes like a nation would just try and find a 47 to put in there because, hey, if you automatically got last place but it was eighth place, you're getting some good team points for your nation. Now I'm seeing there's 15 athletes in the 47 kilo class. It is a lot bigger depth in there. It's harder to get team points. And also, if you now want to be, top 10, top 5, top 3, it's something really challenging to achieve in that 47, 59s, 120 plus, those kind of weight classes that you had mentioned earlier. So it's good to see that there's growth in different areas in the overall number of athletes and the overall depth for being top 10, top 5, and not just, yeah, the world record just going up exponentially.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing more really to add.
Uh, so what we can do now is we can go into some of the specific weight classes and go over some of our thoughts. So let me share my screen. I'll just pull up for now just the results from the IPF website. And if we want to go to any other results that we can, but here I just want to kind of keep it simple here, starting off with the 47 kilo weight class. Initially, it looked like it was going to be a battle on paper of Tiff versus Emily versus Leanne Lee. And it was kind of anyone's game. But as the attempts started going, it clearly looked like Tiffany Chapon was just pulling away. And that's why we can see she had a 453 kilo total. And then silver medal was Emily at 432.5. And then Leanne was at 427.5. So then it really became a battle of second versus third, and Tiff kind of doing her own thing. So I want to kind of hear your thoughts, Hendrik, of what you want to discuss here, especially that battle for second place.
Yeah, I think Tiffany was always the big favorite. I thought for the other two competitors, a lot of things would have needed to happen for them to beat her. Even on paper, it might have looked a little bit closer. For Lian, it was her first words, so you never know. Some people are completely unaffected with traveling and stuff, but for her, we didn't know she weighed in below 46 kilograms. And maybe she's just not as battle tested yet. So her high end strength is obviously amazing, and maybe not as far away from Tiffany. Not far away from Tiffany at all. But as you can see, like she made 3 out of 9 attempts, only her second attempts in every lift. And I mean, 3 out of 9 is really hard to justify no matter the circumstances. So a lot of things just went wrong, obviously. What stands out is the 7.5 kilogram jump from second to third bench press, which was for me, I think they that was their last attempt at challenging Tiffany. I think they thought, like, if we want to challenge Tiffany, we have to get 95, otherwise we don't have a chance. This is my interpretation. As Arian said in the beginning, we don't know, obviously, so we are not judging. But in any case, this jump, unsuccessful jump, then led to her losing second place, quite simply, because then she was out of her depth on deadlifts. She has pulled 197.5 before, I think, and they opened with 187.5. So this is a philosophical discussion that will have in a lot of weight classes. But to me, this series of 187, 195, 200 looks like a series that are just like three heavy deadlifts, and that is normally not recoverable. For most athletes, it is not. So I don't know her enough again, but I thought they did not do themselves any favors. While Amelie from Canada, I think she did everything right. Obviously, she said she wanted to win, but I don't think she cut down 2 weight classes. She was a 57 last year, and she preserved strength on a level that is absolutely unheard of. It was absolutely amazing to see. And then she got called for elbow depth on her first and second bench press. So if this is not a 90 in total, but a 97.5, which is a likely outcome, or 95 or 97.5, even then, Tiffany is too far away. So I think they did a very, very good job. They were very hard pressed on bench press. They just managed to pull through, but just not enough to challenge Tiffany. But then very, very good jumps on deadlift, especially 82.5 to 87.5. I think they found her top end, and so they were able to fend off the American team.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with your thoughts here on both athletes. And with Emily, yeah, maybe they were hoping for a little bit more on squat. Like maybe they're hoping for 157 on the best day, and they had to kind of adjust down to 155, which is smart. Hey, get 3 for 3. You're in a tight battle. And then unfortunately, yeah, bench didn't go the way they wanted to go with elbow depth, and it was, one of the earlier sessions, so kind of everyone was getting a feel for, hey, how's the referee going to go? So sometimes the lower weight classes, hey, you just have to go in. If you're day one or you're session one, you're like, I sometimes say you're the guinea pig. You don't know if the scoring lights are going to work. You don't know how active the jury's going to be. You don't know if, like, the bathroom is close by or whatever like that. Like, you guys figure out how things are at the start, and then coaches and athletes learn for the later days, like, okay, we have to adjust based on this or that. So she unfortunately got hit with that elbow depth. Maybe she could have got another 5 to 7.5 kilos there if it wasn't an issue, to maybe get her up to 440 or 442.5 on a perfect day if everything was going well. And then, yeah, if Tiff was having a bad day, if maybe she had missed her third squat and her third deadlift, then that's where they could have challenged her. But obviously, Tiff was having an amazing day. So even at 440, yeah, they wouldn't have been able to push her. And then with Leanne, like you said, it could have been multiple issues. Maybe body weight was a factor, and maybe she overcut or didn't find food or something like that. But I wouldn't say that's the only factor, and probably travel is probably not the only factor, because she was able to come back and make the second attempts after missing the opener. So for example, after missing 132.5 on squat, she was able to hit 145. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily only a strength issue. Same thing on deadlift. After missing the 187.5, she hit the 195, which is close to her top end. So there's potentially some other things going on there. Like you said, being a younger lifter, going to an international championship your first time, maybe a little bit of nerves, maybe, nerves getting you on the first attempt. And then, third attempt being a little bit of strength and nerves and momentum going your wrong way throughout the championship, and it can just kind of snowball on you. So the reasons could be multiple reasons there. And yeah, like you said, we don't know if they were like, hey, we don't care about second or third. We want to go for first if possible. So for that, like you said, that 7.5 kilo jump on bench press, maybe their goal was like, hey, we're secure on the podium. We don't care about going from third to second. We want to be aggressive and try and go for first if it is there on that day. So they kind of want to keep that goal alive by doing that 7.5 kilo jump. But yeah, for me on the outside looking in, 7.5 kilo jump is a big jump for bench press, especially for someone who has around a 100 kilo or lower max on bench press. And so a lot of times I'm doing 5 kilo jumps from first to second, and most likely 2.5 kilo jumps from second to third. So yeah, I think 90 would have been a smarter idea there, especially after how squat had gone. A lot of times, if squat goes bad for me, I want to then go conservative on bench press and regain my momentum. So maybe 90, obviously, us looking back now in hindsight, would have been the move there. And then that would have kept her close enough to go for silver if they wanted to go for silver as a primary goal because they knew goal was out of the picture at that point. But again, we don't know the reasoning there.
I think one thing to keep in mind is, especially the US team very often has this approach like we want to win, everything else doesn't really matter. So you see this a lot with US lifters. You see it with other lifters as well, but for the US that is in all sports, not only powerlifting. And I mean that might be one part what makes this nation so great in sports. So it's definitely a positive aspect. But I think in this particular case, you have to acknowledge this is not about the 47s right now anymore, but obviously using this example, you have the there's the problem that you might miss the point where you need to rethink your strategy, because now, like at the very last deadlift, they tried to get to second place because they obviously decided we cannot load 225 or whatever. So then they loaded for second place, and then it was too much. And again, like if you look at the squat event and you missed like your third, and Tiffany is already in a great squatting form, so it is relatively likely that she is good at deadlift as well. So you really have to ask yourself, what is the play here? Do we go super aggressive for a very unlikely scenario? Or do we go kind of aggressive and maybe just go for 92.5 on bench? So, I mean, I know what I would do, but my point is, when they got to deadlift, it was too late to change their approach. They should have changed they could have changed their approach on bench press, and it would have suited them better in this case.
Yeah, that was kind of I was going to add to as well when it comes to the deadlift, similar to what you said, and obviously we don't know what they thought their top end was on the day and how training went. But yeah, if someone is going to go, for example, let's just assume someone's going to go for a 200 kilo max in a competition, then what I would do maybe is like 180 for the opener. And then if all goes well, you go to 190 and then 200. If you want to make a little bit smaller jumps, you go from 180 to 192.5 and then 192.5 to 200. So it's like a 7.5 kilo jump. And so here, if they thought 200 was a top end, then yeah, I would say 187.5 is too heavy of an opener. If they thought maybe she could have done more, like 205 or 210 or something like that, then sure, maybe at a certain point, 187.5 becomes a better opener. But then it just depends on how is training going, and also taking the fact that so far squat didn't go well. Like you said, for Tiff, squat went well, so most likely deadlift is going to go well. You can say the opposite for Lance, squat didn't go well, so most likely deadlift is not going to go well either, and you may need to then be conservative and adjust down. And the other thing, which is maybe just another key point of just world championships in general the last number of years, is how fast these sessions are, especially these prime time sessions with the main group. Is that if you even go on YouTube and just look at the live streams from this past week and look at the times, they're all about like 3 hours or less, which also includes the introduction when the live stream is starting and also the awards afterwards. So we're looking at maybe more like 2 to 2.5 hour sessions. And so you have to account for the speed that this championship is going, that again, maybe going more conservative on the opener will save you energy. And then if you can handle bigger jumps, you go 180, 190, 200 and be able to then pull for that silver medal.
To finalize the 47s, I just want to say that Tiffany was amazing. And it seems that losing last year to Heather was the best thing that could have happened to her, because before she was going 5 out of 9, 6 out of 9 a lot, and very just strength progressing was relatively slow. And since then, she has made a lot more attempts in competition and has gotten a lot stronger. So it's right now she is like one of the, above all weight classes, one of the, I mean, obviously she has million world championships already, but 47s was not as competitive in the past. Now it's competitive, and on top of that, she has gotten so good. She is now like absolutely on the top of every food chain.
Yeah. And I was just going to quickly add to that, not only with Tiffany, but it seems like with France overall, if we go back a few years, people online were maybe hating on some of the decisions that Team France is making on attempt selection and athletes maybe not performing as well, maybe putting the wrong attempts or whatever. But it seems like in the last couple of years, you've started to see that change. And Tiffany's now just like executing very well. And also now Team France is executing much better than before. Let's jump over to the men's side so we can go back and forth. So we'll go over the 59 kilo class next, where we had another great battle here. And this did come down to a fight for the podium as well. So here we can see our champion was Ivan Campano Diaz from Spain with a 660 total. Right below him was Michael Slavic from USA with 658 kilos. Then a battle for third place was Antoine Garcia from France with 632.5. And then my athlete Kweku and Yarko representing Ghana at 627.5. So where do you want to start us off here, Hendrik?
Okay, so this is the session where I have a lot of thoughts about. I mean, one of the most interesting maybe. So what I think basically Team USA just squandered it. I think it was Jason Clark who said on Instagram that they made a huge mistake with loading 303 on the second deadlift and forcing Michael to pull two deadlifts above 300. In my initial analysis, I don't think it was as grave as a mistake as he said. What I believe happened was two things, and I don't know if it's at the same time or one more than the other. I think they overestimated Michael's top range. I just today looked at his Instagram feed. I saw like he teasered a 326 deadlift in training. He showed 310 deadlifts with straps. But anyway, I saw one post where he said, at this rate, I might just win with my opening pull. So they're very, very confident. But the way he pulls sumo is so technical. And that is very often the case for the lower weight classes. So everything has to go right. And I mean, okay, we get there in a minute. So I think they vastly overestimated his top end range on deadlift. And I think the second thing that happened is that they thought they put it away with 303.5. I think 303, sorry, in the second attempt. I think they didn't think that Ivan has 290 to counter. I think they estimated his top range maybe 285. I mean, he has never pulled 290 in competition before. He has actually never pulled more than 270, I think, in competition before. So I think that is the main point. They thought we put it out of reach with the second deadlift, and then we can, for the third, we can have fun. And I think this was a reasonable take on the situation. I think that was not unreasonable to think. But then, sorry, Jason Clark, that I just use you as an example now all the time, but it's exactly what Jason said. Like, leave your ego at the door and just stay ahead. And I think in this specific case, there's one very important thing what happened here. If they just pull, because Michael always pulled after Ivan, so they could have just put 2.5 kilo more. I think he was heavier, right? Could have just put 2.5 kilo more. No, he was lighter, so he could have just equaled the total from Ivan, and then just forced Ivan for the third deadlift to choose his number. So Ivan would have had come up with a number where he says, I can hit this. And then they can react to that number. And I am 95% positive, actually 98% positive, that they wouldn't have selected 290 because I don't think that they thought this was his top end range or that they would have taken the risk. But so now you have the whole situation is reversed. Instead of you sitting there doing a relatively easy second deadlift and tell the other guy, show me what you got, you forced his hand. There's only one number he can put on this bar. And then he lifts it, and because he has no other choice, he has to. So everything is reversed. Now you are under pressure, and you have to make your third, and then you miss on grip. And this was, I think, that is what leave your ego at the door, just win. Because I think they needed 6:35 or whatever for Sheffield, I think, qualification. So they got there. They would have gotten there easily. So Sheffield qualification would have already been okay. And so it was just basically, 303. And then for the third, we do 315 because we are so awesome or whatever. And that is what Jason meant with leave your ego at the door. And so I don't think the mistake was as grave because I really think they thought with the second they had it in the bag. But I think it is a very good example of what can happen if you miscalculate. Because, again, what you said, in these very short sessions, two deadlifts over 300, no matter if you have the strength, but maybe your fingers don't recover as fast. Maybe there's a reason that you can only pull one heavy deadlift in training before you use straps, So, yeah.
Yeah.
Did
okay.
Sorry, I
No.
didn't know if I've left everything for you.
No, I kind of agree with your idea here that yeah, maybe it wasn't the worst mistake ever because if you look at the 303 pull, it looked a little bit funky. It looked like maybe he shifted a little bit and it was a little bit challenging for him. But then when you look at the 305 pull, the 305 pull actually moved faster and better executed than the 303. So, like you said, it's very technical for him. And when he was in the right position and executing the 305, he executed it very well until obviously he lost his grip. The other thing that may have led to those differences between those two attempts is how big of a jump it was, is that maybe it threw him off kind of feeling that kind of 25 kilo jump and maybe threw off his hook grip and everything like that. But then when you're doing a 2 kilo jump, your body's already used to that weight. So you're not getting like thrown off by the jump in weight. And so maybe that was another reason why the second looked harder than the third. So I think, yeah, strength wise, he is capable of the numbers that we're talking about 310, 315. And also, the other thing is kind of what you said was that maybe they were thinking a little bit ahead from what I saw in some of the stuff they were posting. Kind of reminds me of like when Brett Gibbs was trying to do a similar thing where he was trying to lock in the win and then go for a best lifter and go for these other things. And he ended up missing his second and third deadlift. And then another athlete came and made all three deadlifts and beat him for the championship. So here, maybe they were looking ahead, like you said, hey, let's do this big second and force Ivan to do a weight that he's not going to hit or not even going to attempt to come after us. We'll have the win locked up, and then we can go for something big or like the world record total or whatever on the third attempt. And so they were kind of looking ahead and feeling good because obviously they did on squat 5 kilos more than what he did at nationals. On bench, they did the same weight that they had done at nationals. And then up to that point on his second attempt deadlift, he was hitting a new personal record for him and feeling strong. And so that was kind of their strategy. So I get what they were doing, and I see how he had the strength for it. But when it comes to sports, you never know. You never know if your hook grip gives, if the floor feels a little bit weird and you're on some kind of lump, or you lose your balance, or you pass out, or you never know what's going to happen. And so you can't kind of be like, oh, I already have the win in the bag and let me just go for these other big numbers. You want to be strategic for your primary goal first. And if your primary goal was to win the world championship, then you build your strategy around winning the world championship. And then if things open up, you can go for other goals there. So yeah, I agree with you as well that you said that by doing the 303, they forced the hand of Spain. Your only option is to go to 290. There's no point of going for a lower number because then you're not going to win. And there's no point going for a higher number because if you miss, then you already have lost at that point and Michael wins. So by doing the 303, you said, hey, your only option is 290. And Ivan went and hit the 290. And now you're like, oh shit, Michael, I have to go out there and do another attempt, even if it is just a 2 kilo jump. You never know what's going to happen. And it moved fast. He locked it out. And then unfortunately, worst case scenario, it slipped out of his hand. And like you said, speed of the meet as well. You have to kind of take that into a factor that, hey, are you doing 3 heavy deadlifts in training after a max squat, after a max bench press on 2 hours of rest with hook grip and no straps? Or are you deadlifting on a separate day as the first lift when you're fresh and doing one heavy single and then doing straps for your other ones? It doesn't always transfer the same.
I think the battle for third and fourth place super interesting. Um, and I will leave you here because like that was your athlete actually on the receiving end of losing. But just for my short introduction and then I hand over to you. Anton had the higher lot number. He squatted 5 kilograms more than Kwaku. And then after then all 6 attempts of them are exactly the same. And with a higher lot number, you can always look what the other guy has done before you. I don't know if this actually happened on bench press, but it definitely happened on deadlifts. And they just stayed ahead. I mean, they did 2.5 kilo more than they had to, but so they didn't give you the option to counter. So I'll just hand over to you. But this is actually extremely well done from Team France, from my point of view.
Definitely, and it was an interesting battle that, yeah, they're so similar in strength across all 3 lifts. The reason why Kwaku couldn't keep up with Anton on squat is that he did have a groin injury the last like month or so, and so that's been holding us back a little bit. So if people go back and look at Kwaku's squat from his last competition, the SBD Austin competition, you'll see that his 227.5 moved very fast and it looked like he had quite a bit more in him. And then here we only did 230. With the top end we had, I think was 232.5 on our game plan. So it was just that based on, travel, weight cut, groin injury, depth, everything like that. Jason and Urban were the one handling at the championship. They felt 230 was the right number based on all those factors. And so then that put him in a 5 kilo hole. We got lucky that Antoine missed the world record squat, and so that we can kind of stay close. And then from there, yeah, they were just very similar strength on bench press. We had 142.5 as a top end for Kwaku, but it just wasn't there, and it's not worth risking when it's that close of a battle. And then when it comes to deadlift, they're both weaker deadlifters compared to everyone else. But in general, Kwaku feels like he is more of like a subtotal guy, and we've been trying to focus on getting the deadlift up, and it hasn't necessarily shown yet. Part of that can also be that the groin injury was holding him back a little bit on deadlift. So we didn't hit as high of numbers as we were hoping when we were first playing it out, but he hit good numbers as far as based on what we knew with the injury and stuff, what he was capable of. And yeah, it just happened to be the way it was with the body weights and lot numbers, and we don't want to adjust Kwaku's deadlifts up just to keep up with someone else for the first and second attempt. We just kind of played it by our game plan. France probably adjusted based on what we were putting in, and then they just had to do that final 5 kilo jump. I know some other people have the strategy, which we've discussed and I've discussed with Jason before, is do you change your first and second deadlift attempts to stay ahead of your competitor after first attempts and stay ahead of after your second attempts? When would you do that? When would you wouldn't? And our kind of thought was that we would only do it if we were confident that by bumping up the opener or the second attempt wouldn't negatively affect the third attempt. But if it is going to negatively affect the third attempt, there's no point of being ahead on openers. Cool, you're ahead on openers, but then you just zap your strength for the third attempt, and now you end up losing on second or third attempt. And so for Kwaku, just based on what we knew his deadlift capabilities were and dealing with injury, we didn't want to bump up his openers just to be after Antoine, just to be ahead on first and second attempts and then lose at the end. We played our strategy the way we wanted to, and we tried to maximize his total as best as we could. That's why he went 9 for 9, hit PRs across the board and everything like that. It just happened to be that Antoine was better than us on the day.
Yeah, nothing to add. I mean, Kwaku hit a huge PR in the 59. So, I mean, sometimes the opponent is just stronger. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, and this is one of those weight classes where there has been more depth, and especially depth at the top. So if you look at previous years, sometimes 630s are winning and like 615 is getting you bronze medal, which Kwaku has gotten on the podium before. Now 630s is what you need to get on the podium. So it's incredible how it's progressed.
Yeah. And we have the sub junior from the US who already did 670.
Yeah, so
Which is
there's
just,
more out there.
there's more out there. Yeah.
All right, let's jump over back to the women's side. Let's go to the 52 kilo class. We'll break it down real quick. Our champion here, Megan Lee Smith from New Zealand. She, cruised fairly easy for 86.5 kilos. And then there's a little bit of a drop off here for Ploen Dekkers from Netherlands at 457.5 kilos. And then a close battle with Catherine from Canada at 455 kilos. So do you want to break this down for us, Henrik? What were you thinking as far as second versus third here?
I don't really so I didn't watch it live, so I don't want to go into detail here. I want to say a few things. First of all, Megan Lee, a few years back, she struggled with nerves a lot. She got a lot of like she missed lifts because of nerves. I think she said so herself, and she has been like I think second or so three times or two times, and she really wanted to win. And she was the clear favorite. And her first squat was so shaky. So I think it got to her, and then she recovered amazingly, and then she cruised. So I just thought this was worth mentioning. I also thought it was worth mentioning that she actually tried 205, not just taking the minimum for world record, but trying to increase the world record and not just say, here, Sheffield, here I come, which some people will say is stupid from a financial point of view. But I think karma is a real thing, and I think it's good if you take, like, if you want to show at the world stage what you have, I think it's a good thing. She missed the 205, but I still think it's admirable that she tried. And I wanna highlight one more thing, which is Farhana in fifth place, because they took a huge jump to the third, so 7.5 jumps in squat, and I think that looks very risky, but like if you look at the totals in the end, so she's at 438, and her third deadlift didn't look that hard. I talked to Kendrick and asked her what he thought she had on the day. I won't reveal what he said, but it's more than this number, and I think that in squat they just said, like we just try, we go very risky, and if it works out, we could have the chance to actually medal in total. And then I think that is what could have happened there. And if you add like 7.5 and then another 5 on that of 12.5, then you are at 450 point something, which wouldn't have been enough, but it's close. So I think that's what happened there. For the battle for second and third, on fourth place, I have to hand over to you because I just didn't follow it. So I don't see anything very unusual right now. Only that Plön wasn't in, like her squat wasn't as strong as it is normally.
That's what I noticed too from what I remember from watching this, is that, a lot of times we're just expecting people that are just very good at a lift to always execute. And so everyone's just expecting, oh, Plön's just going to chip her world record squat like she always does and just keep bumping it up. And something looked a little off on the day. It looked like maybe she had, I think, her left side, like her left knee kind of caving in more and kind of causing some twisting and stuff. So her second attempt didn't look as good as I was hoping, and maybe not as good as they were hoping. But, you don't have much space anyways. At that point, they were just going to take the 3 kilo jump and try and go for the world record. And, people were obviously, again, like I said, expecting it, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know if something was off there, if it was just maybe she's dealing with something, or maybe she just has some kind of imbalance or tightness or whatever that was happening in training and kind of just show up here where one side was kind of weaker. But it just looked a little unusual the way it was technique wise compared to normally her squat is so good looking. So that kept some kilos behind of what she's capable of and made it a closer battle. But from there, they kind of made it through the bench press, with elbow depth and those kind of things, and then just executed what they needed to on deadlift. So again, personally for me, as we discussed before, maybe I would start off a little bit lighter on deadlifts and then take some bigger jumps to conserve energy and kind of like see what the competitor's doing as well. But here as well, they may have wanted to kind of be able to pull afterwards and make the adjustment that, okay, hey, our competitor's going up 5 kilos, let's go up 5 kilos. And then they get to go after them again. Hey, our competitor's going up 5 kilos, we only have to go up 5 kilos
Yeah.
for the win because we weigh heavier. So they kind of just wanted to play that strategy where they felt confident that, hey, we can open up heavier than them and just kind of follow them and get our silver medal and move on.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like that's what happened. And in her recap, she already said that she didn't have a great day. So I think they also estimated the top end probably to be a little bit higher, but they did what they had to do. So also, like, just shout out, you don't have to go back, but is Elizabeth Craven, like, coming back, former world champion, 1975 born and getting 8th place, that's very, very cool. World record master too. Yeah. Very,
Yeah,
very nice.
and I think for this 52 kilo class, like this total that she's hitting is similar to what she was maybe hitting many years ago. So it's not like her strength has dropped off. She's been able to maintain her strength or actually like, get stronger when you think about how she's gotten older as well. And yeah, you can see she broke the world record in the bench press and the deadlift and the total. So
Yeah.
great job there. All right, jumping over back to the men's side, the 66 kilo class. This one was kind of, once we saw Shell going back down the 66s, we knew he was the heavy favorite, and he ended up winning with the 755 kilo total. Then it came down to the battle for second and third. Joe Jordan from USVI and Kyoto Ushiyama from Japan. Joe ended up winning with 715 and Kyoto at 705. Some lifters did try and chase him from behind, like Austin here from USA got fourth place trying to pull onto the podium, but wasn't able to get it. So it was a good battle there for second and third, and also people behind trying to come and steal a podium spot, even though Shell was like the favorite as the gold medalist.
I don't think Austin Nikolai would view himself as coming from behind. I just think they made a lot of, in this case, a lot of bad decisions. 15 kilo jump from 57 to 72, 272. I think that was a world record attempt, actually, I believe.
For juniors, I believe, yeah.
Okay, so, so this didn't work. But 15 kilos, that is a case where I say the second attempt is just not high enough. That's an unnecessary risk. Unless you have a very specific case from an athlete who says, I can only do one very heavy squat. Or, like, if I do two very heavy squats, then my deadlift suffers enormously. This could happen. This could be the case. So then I have to eat my words. But then bench press, it happens to me like once a year. So that my athlete just gets one bench in, or maybe twice. But again, like, identify the situation where you are in. So does the 137.5 really look that you can go to 150 or whatever? So I don't know. Yeah, and then the last deadlift is just unfortunate.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up real quick what his bench PR is. 147. So it's gone down from 147 down to 145 down to 137, unfortunately.
Yeah, obviously, when this happens, a lot of things don't go your way. Sometimes you're just unlucky. I think the third squat was, two red lights, so it could have worked. I don't know. Besides that, like, Kyoto's bench press strategy keeps impressing me. Like, first two were because of elbow depth, I believe, and third one was so heavy. So I just don't know what's happening there. I really don't know.
Yeah. My thought from watching this battle, when it comes to Austin Nikolai and this kind of jump, it is kind of high risk, high reward, because if you miss it, which he did in this case, and we'll come back to a second why he missed it, you lose out on those 15 kilos, which is a lot for this weight class for this kind of battle. But if you get it, it puts you in a very prime position, because if we give him that 15 kilos, then that puts him at 705, and he is the lighter lifter. So then he would have been sitting in the bronze medal. And also at that point, he could have challenged Joe Jordan for the silver medal if he wanted to. So if you hit that, you're instantly in a great spot. But when you miss it, then obviously you're in a really bad spot. Then
That's
after, go ahead.
but then again, no, sorry,
Yeah.
you go.
So then after you miss it, now you've lost out on those, 15 or you can say 10 kilos if it went more conservative. And now you have to try and make those kilos back. And so you could think about it, oh, I need to go aggressive for bench press. But for me, I think of it the other way. It's like, hey, I already went aggressive on squat and it didn't work out. I need to now turn a little bit more conservative and make sure I get kilos on bench press and have other people miss. And you can see Kyoto is missing and even Joe missed a second. So if Austin was able to maximize his bench press and get 3 attempts in and maybe end up at 140 or 142.5 kilos, now he's a little bit closer and now he doesn't have to develop as much. Even if it is just 2 kilos, 2.5 kilos or 5 kilos difference, that could have made the difference for deadlift. And so I don't know if they went more aggressive here. I don't know why his bench is down, but yeah, I would have maybe gone more conservative here and made sure I got 3 in to kind of stay in the fight. And then yeah, once it comes to deadlift, at that point, he may have just gotten gassed out at how fast the competition was. And after that second deadlift, and he just couldn't do the 15 kilo jump. The second one didn't look super hard. So I thought maybe the 15 kilo was potentially there. It wasn't just like a Hail Mary attempt that they had no chance of getting. It just looked like maybe he was just gassed out on the day. And again, if he had gone the 15 kilos or 10 kilos on squat, or maybe even 5 kilos on bench press, then maybe that deadlift would have came down enough where he could have stole third. And again, that high risk, if he had gone a third squat and he was on deadlift, maybe he could even stole silver at that point. And then again, just mentioning real quick, the reason for missing that third squat, as you said, he got 2 reds. If I remember correctly, one referee said depth, and the other one said he jumped the rack command. He was kind of like leaning forward and kind of falling into the rack as they were saying the rack command. And I believe Marcellus and the coaches went to the jury, and the jury says, hey, we thought it was to depth, but we did think he was jumping the rack command. So he kind of lost it a little bit on a technicality, you can say. But again, like if you know someone's full out true max strength on a lift, like in a lab or whatever, the closer and closer you get to that max, the more chances there are for things to go bad, where technique goes bad, you jump a command, you get injured, you lose your balance, your grip slips out in deadlift, whatever. The closer and closer you're getting to the sun, you may get burned. So again, this comes where like, hey, if you've gone from 257 to 267, say, hey, I'm capable of 272, but I'm gonna do 267 so I can kind of leave a little bit in the tank to make sure I execute it well and save energy on deadlift, then maybe things would have played out differently. And Kyoto did leave the door open. He opened up, I think, if I remember correctly, his opener maybe was fine or maybe a little too heavy on squat. But then again, second attempt was too heavy, missed his third. Bench had the elbow depth issues. And then he's had issues with lockout when it comes to deadlift for a number of competitions now. Sometimes it's soft knees, sometimes it's other things. And it kind of just reared its head again. And that kind of kept him back from keeping up with Joe, but also left that door open for Austin.
What I want to say about no, Austin, I think so. It is worth mentioning that his last 3 competitions, he went 2 times 9 out of 9 and 1 time 8 out of 9. So I think there was just a component of bad luck involved, because he is, especially with squats, as you can see, is a very reasonable attempt selection. There's not much here where you can say that was not a good idea. So I think generally speaking, sometimes it's just bad luck, you know.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
don't know for sure off the top of my head right now at what point in these competitions he switched coaches and switched to Marcelo. So maybe it is a switch of coaching that led to all these better attempt selection and
uh,
execute on game day. Or maybe he was already doing that and then he just switched coaches to kind of improve. But yeah, you can see he's executed well. Though, again, the argument you can kind of make back towards that is that this was in the US, this was in Costa Rica, so like similar time zone and stuff like that. This was US, so it is a little bit less travel, little bit less time zone difference, maybe a little bit more easy judging as well, depending on who was refereeing the specific competition. And so maybe a factor for this also was just the travel, the change in time zone, the harder judging, and then yeah, just bad luck on that third squat. If he had gone that third squat, maybe things would have played differently at the end for deadlifts. All right,
right.
let's jump back over to women's. This should be an interesting one, 57 kilo class, and it, I guess maybe was a little bit of a surprise, but not the biggest surprise. Joined Amani from Great Britain, pulls off what maybe some people considered upset and wins with 518 kilos. Right behind her was Sarah Naldi from Italy at just 517.5 kilos. And then the bronze medalist here was Evie Corrigan from New Zealand at 500, beating out, which is a battle for the podium as well, Bobby Butters from Great Britain, also at a 500 kilo total. So where do you want to start on this one?
So I will just go from fourth upwards. I think, first of all, Bobby, very unfortunate that she didn't get a bronze, but she got the 500 kilogram total, which was a huge goal of her, and she said she moves up to 63. So I think she has like one, I don't know how to say it in English, but like one happy tear, one sad tear, kind of. Evie showing that she is growing into the class, like I think 10 kilo PB, already world class, bronze medal. I think that is going to be very interesting next year. How she improves. I think she can be a world champion at 57s again. And then the battle from Sarah and Joy was so interesting. Before like putting this in perspective, them two against each other, because that is not really what happened during squat, and actually they didn't really react much towards each other in squat and bench press. They basically took what they had. Joy, the under 85, was two yellow lights, which I don't know what for, maybe elbow supporting.
I think it was the elbow supporting, yeah.
So that was very unlucky for her. And at that point, I thought it was over because 200 for Sarah is a very good result. Then Joy hit her top end on bench press. Sometimes she hits 100, not always, but this time she did. And Sarah, I think 107.5 is, I think, a PR. I'm not 100% sure, like in the 57s, but it's a good result. I think the second was so heavy, and I think also elbow depth, I believe, and very shaky. I didn't think she would get it, but then she did, so which really speaks to her resilience. That was really amazing. And then for deadlift, now, when you just look at it, it looks stupid, like for 210 getting, and then you are ahead. So maybe 217.5 could have clinched the win, more or less, because you are forcing Joy to take, I think, 245.5 or something, which, to be very, very fair here, after her second attempt, I think was in the cards. But maybe the second was a little bit too high for Sarah. But then again, she has hit this before a lot, and her squat and her bench press had very good results. So it's really not, you cannot really say that this was a massive risk. I mean, it was a massive risk, but not an unreasonable risk, I believe. So, she had 170.5, but with 60 kilo body weight on bench. So, and she has hit 227.5 before. She locked out her second deadlift on the day, but she got red lighted, and then she didn't have the strength for the third anymore. So, in hindsight, and I really want to say this in this case, in hindsight, you opened too heavy, you took a too big jump, and then you were gassed on your third. You didn't have anymore. But I'm not sure that this is really. Obviously, I think they could have played it a little bit more safe, but I don't think it's an outrageous error that they did. I think it was kind of bad luck. And Joy, I mean, this is something can you imagine anything but Joy doing this 220 missing because jumping the command, or like maybe she lost her balance, but she just jumped to 235, which is close to her best. And to be quite honest, when I was watching it, I didn't have a single doubt. And I think no one had a single doubt that she hit this, but this is like 98% or whatever. So for all the lifters that we have discussed so far, I would say never do this. But for her, it was just, I don't know. I didn't feel that there was any pressure, actually. And again, with the third 2838, I would have absolutely be surprised if she didn't get it. Like 235 looked so great. It was her 10th World Championship. She's very consistent. Again, like the second looked as that weights above 240 are reasonable to expect. So seeing the 238, I think like 245 she wouldn't have had, but maybe 241, 242, something like this. But so yeah, an amazing battle, but like in a battle that there, as I said before, there was not so much reaction towards each other before deadlifts, and even in deadlifts, not really, because the 235 didn't really change anything for Joy, which is objectively, it's not a good call. But I don't know, it didn't feel like this. I'm probably biased because I'm a huge fan. And then for Sarah, as I said, a little bit bad luck.
Yeah, and I think people kind of said that maybe the third squat for Joy was a little bit bad luck as far as the if it
Yeah.
was elbow supporting because it's such a weird rule. And the more I think about it, I'm like, how can the elbows actually support you in the squat? Because they might just throw you off by having your elbows hit your thighs. They may move the bar, and you may lose the bar and everything like that. So maybe it's like something they should just get rid of or whatever. So it was, I felt like that was a little bit bad luck. And then it came back around where Sarah maybe got a little bad luck on that second deadlift where she locked it out, and it did look like her shoulders were back, but for whatever reason, I don't know if they thought her shoulders were rounded forward or down. I don't know what it was. It was just a weird call there, and maybe at that point that gassed her out. But yeah, I don't think the 210 to 220 was necessarily a bad call based on how well the competition was going and the fact that she's done 227.5 before. So maybe you're planning on going 210, 220, 230 on the best day. Maybe you could have gone more conservative and gone 207.5 to 220 to 230. But in that point, you still would have hit the 207.5 and probably missed the 220 twice, on lockout and then just getting gassed out. So I don't know if it would have changed it if she went a little bit more conservative on the opener deadlift. It was just, yeah, maybe a little bit bad luck and maybe the speed of the competition where she just gassed out. And I agree with you that kind of Joy was kind of doing her own thing and Sarah was doing her own thing. And like you said, even the jump for Joy from 220 to 235 wasn't going to change her placing. She was still going to be behind Sarah if Sarah had made her second. It's not like they went straight to 238 saying, hey, we want to be ahead. It seemed like Great Britain was like, hey, let's be a little bit conservative just in case. And also, they were probably expecting Sarah to hit her second and go for more in a third. So if Sarah goes for 225 on the third, okay, now we have to hit 240.5 on our third. So let's just do 235 and give us space to then be able to jump rather than repeating 220 and then having the jump from 220 to like 240. So like, hey, let's take a little bit of a jump, get closer with a weight we know we can execute, and then see what Sarah hits on her third. But then when Sarah missed her second and third, then that left the door open. And Joy is the heavier lifter, but when you're a world record puller, you can just chip whatever you want. She can just do the easy 3 kilo jump and get the win. So it was a good battle there.
One thing that we don't mention a lot until now is the 235 could have been a play for like Sheffield, like because I think is it still the case that the some of the best percentage-wise of from the world record, the best second place finishers get an invite. So maybe it could have been that they say, well, that would secure or give us a very good chance at Sheffield.
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
think
I don't, I don't know. I don't think that Joy thinks like this, to be honest. But I just wanted to mention it that this could be a case in some attempt selection processes.
yeah, I was gonna say kind of what you were saying earlier. I don't think Joy maybe necessarily thinks about like, oh, what if I go up for my first to second and bomb out? I think she'd be okay with bombing out. She'd rather go for first. So I think she'd be okay with that. But I don't know if her and her coach think so much about, hey, let's take this second for Sheffield or for some other reason.
Mm.
I think they were trying to find what's a weight that we can take that we know we can hit, but then still be in a good position to then not have a huge jump from the second to third. And looking at what she's done before, she did 227.5 for her second in her previous competition, 232.5 in her third. So they must have felt strong that, hey, she could do 240 or more if she needs to on the day. So let's go with 235. And I think also uh, Dom being her coach, I think he has kind of that idea too sometimes of putting a little pressure on the opponent by taking a bigger second that will like, get them to push themselves more. In this case, it wouldn't have put them in the first, but it would have closed the gap where then Sarah would be concerned of like, hey, how much more do I go? What if I go too much or too little? Joy's just going to beat me. So I think maybe there was some kind of strategy there as well. But again, we don't know what's going on.
But we know that Joy has so much experience, and she know that she doesn't tire out. So she can do this relatively risk-free. And basically has elevated herself with this 5th world title to an absolute legend. If she wasn't one before, it's crazy.
We can jump over now to the 74 kilo class, which should be a pretty quick one. Austin Perkins from USA was the favorite, and he easily won with 891.5, just matching the world record and winning best lifter as well. Behind him was Bertrand Balthazar from France at 805 kilos, and then again another little bit of a drop off here to Chunxia Fan from Chinese Taipei at 781. Is there anything specific you want to discuss here?
Just so Balthazar was, I think, doing his own thing. I think he wouldn't have put 200 on his third bench press if he was really concerned that he could lose second. I think he was, and the 317 as well. I mean, he already knew then that he is second. So I think he left some kilos on the platform, but I think he is also okay with it. He cannot yet challenge Austin. We don't know if he ever will. He's very young. He's very talented. So if someone has a chance, he is one of those guys. But yeah. And for Austin, I mean, yeah, it just 6 out of 6. He didn't take any thirds. He exactly matched the world record. And his opener, it was pointed out to me, I don't know if it's true, but I think his openers were exactly like Elliot Sykes' total PB. So people were thinking maybe he did it because of that. I'm just saying.
I didn't even hear about that one, but I heard about how, yeah, he passed on his thirds, but they selected the second attempt on squat and bench exactly so that they can then like chip the world record deadlift and tie the world record total.
Yeah.
So they kind of ran the numbers up like, hey, let's just tie the world record total, but we want to get the deadlift back. So what should we do with the other attempts to kind of set that up?
Yeah. So Austin, by a mile, the best pound for pound lifter currently alive. Just crazy.
Yeah, if we take a look real quick at Open IPF, we have a guy to sick on the women's side with 133, and then Austin Perkins on the men's side with 131. And then, yeah, the next male is down here at 7, Elliot Sykes at 125, which happens to be the same weight class.
Yeah. But it's not exactly the openers that Perkins chose, so I was misinformed, so I apologize. The squat is 2.5 higher.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that covers the 74. Yeah. We can jump back over to the women's side and go to the 63 kilo class. Our champion Alba Bostrom from Sweden cruised, fairly easily as far as her competitors. She had her own issue with bench press. We'll go over 569 total, and then the battle really came down to the rest of the podium. Chiara Bernardi from Italy, 522.5. Right behind her was Betty Abora from Netherlands at 515. And also right behind her, Makita Vidal from Great Britain, also at 515. Where do you want to start here?
I think for Alba, it's very interesting because she was hit the hardest with the hip, like the thrust upper body rule. She's also one of the main reasons why this rule exists now. We have to say it's a clarification of an already existing rule. That's what the IPF already said. She basically transformed herself from very strong with a tendency of like a bench specialist towards now a deadlift specialist. Her 241.5 looked absolutely incredible. I didn't even know that she did 237.5 before. So, but still, like, look at her progress in deadlifts. Like, look at her progress in everything. It's absolutely mind-boggling what she's doing. She's on the tier of a lifetime. Like, she's Junior Worlds, Worlds, Sheffield, second place, World Games champion, now Worlds again. It's stellar. It's unbelievable. I'm really asking myself, how long can this continue? It's crazy. Still, bench press, even the 117.5, they don't look so clean. So I think she has there's a little bit of an scare in the future could be there. So for Chiara, she's still injured on deadlift, so she's just missing. I think she can go up to 230, so she's just missing a lot of kilos there, which then so basically makes her lock for second place in this case. And yeah, the battle for third place. I mean, Betty executed perfectly, 9 out of 9, and I don't think there were many people that thought she can do 235 deadlift on the day after a second attempt, which was really heavy. But she executed. That was pretty amazing to see. Um, Generally speaking, a little bit of a down year for the 63s. Like they have been stronger before, which is sometimes a little bit weird how this happens. I'm very sure the totals next year will be higher on the podium as this year, with the exception of Alba, of course. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, including like Alba. Her and like Meg Scanlon are probably the ones I was like concerned about. Like, hey, let's see how they adjust their technique, how much of a hit they're gonna take. And you can see here that where Alba was hitting 140 last year on bench press, even has tried 144 and now has been dropped all the way down to 117.5. But on the flip side, fortunately for her, she built up that deadlift that she hit 227.5 last year, now all the way up to 241.5. So that's really helped her gain the kilos that she's losing on bench press to be able to kind of build things up. And even though she had her total kind of drop down for Sheffield, she was still able to win easily, and maybe she'll figure out the bench press and kind of get that back up to where it was before. And yeah, this kind of really came down to the battle for third place because if we're looking at the silver medal, GR, went up 15 kilos and missed twice, but no one was even trying to pull to take her position at that point. So she kind of got a little bit lucky that she was far enough ahead and no one even wanted to try and take a shot to steal silver, but they were in a battle for bronze. And so that's where the focus was. And it was a great fight here between Netherlands and Great Britain because you can see for Makita here how she went from 190 to 207.5 on first to second deadlift. So she took a big jump and really put the pressure on Betty. Betty only took a 10-kilo jump, and like you said, the second maybe didn't look the best. And then Makita goes another 10 kilos up to put the pressure on Betty. And then, as we see again, Betty being the lighter lifter by 0.05.
Oh, wow.
So all she had to do was do the 10-kilo jump to match it, and she was able to do the 10 kilos, tie in total, and a win on the body weight. And yeah, maybe on a better day, she could have challenged for the silver medal because Chiara was kind of off. But for today, she's still young. She's getting stronger. She had an incredible meet. Got to take the bronze and be happy with that.
Yeah, from what my sources in the Netherlands tell me is that she wants to move up, but maybe she cannot be. I don't know. So I don't want to speculate too much, but I think she should move up. Like when she starts at bench worlds last year, I think she's often 67, 68. I don't know. She's super strong, but her totals have remained the same since 2 years. Makeda, on the other hand, like the deadlift is a huge PR in competition. Again, what we talked at the very beginning, like attempt selection for Team Great Britain. I don't think 190 to 217.5 is something you really expect. That's 27.5 kilos. I mean, it's not unreasonable, but yeah, you have to be really confident in your abilities. And with these jumps, you're probably not tired out before you are at your third deadlift. Very nice.
Yeah, fun battle there. We can jump over now to the 83 kilo class, which has been an interesting one now for a few competitions. And we had another, you can call it a upset, but not really an upset. Ade Omisaken from Great Britain ends up winning with 882.5 kilos. Looks like it's a big difference, but it was actually a little bit closer than that. Silver medal is Joe Bornstein from USA at 857.5 kilos. And then bronze medal was Jerns Kangamu from Great Britain, 845, which I believe I heard he got injured like while he was warming up. So that's kind of why he fell back from the rest of the pack here.
Yeah, I think his bench press is super down from his best, I believe, 182. I think he has done way more than that, I believe.
We can take a look at that one real quick. So he's done 195, yeah.
Yeah. So you see Joe Bornstein go 4 out of 9, missing a huge jump, second to third deadlift, and you can say, well, we talked a lot about attempt selection and how it could have played out differently if the attempts were selected differently. I don't think this is the case here. Like he just um Ade war just Ade was just stronger and it wouldn't have really mattered. I mean, who's when you look at Joe's third bench attempt, 202.7, I mean, this was his top end. Like he just basically there was nothing to gain there. I think squat maybe he has 2.5 or 5 more. Obviously that would have helped. I think the huge jump, so where it gets a little bit fuzzy is they upped their first deadlift attempt to from 340 to 345 to apply pressure. But at this point in the competition, and that is a recurrent theme, we will have this again. A heavy opener is in deadlift is seldom a good idea, especially with these short sessions. And after what happened to his deadlift at Sheffield, you really have to question if this is what you should be doing. And then the second attempt to 372.5, it quite frankly doesn't make much sense to me because it wasn't even close. You know, it's not like he missed it barely. It was just too heavy. And I knew this after the opener that it would be the case. And then he tried, I don't know. Obviously this is doesn't look like great attempt selection, and it isn't. But on the other hand, no matter what he would have done, I think Adi had 5 to 7.5 kilos more to give. And after he hit his third squat, I think from how it played out, he was just the stronger lifter on the day. Jurins was injured. But I still think for Joe, from like he has been amazingly successful and strong and everything, but his competitions, there is still a lot of things that go wrong in his competitions. And he bombed out once, I think, but I know he injured himself, not bombed out. And then he has missed quite a free share of his deadlifts. I think he always goes up no matter what happens, which at high stake lifts, sometimes you have to, but what I wanted to say is I think it's still a little bit naive in how they approach competitions, which is a strange thing to say about one of the best lifters on the planet. But I think there could be improvements made, even though at this meet it wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Yeah, I have to agree with you that, yeah, I thought on the day, there wasn't necessarily something that would change the placing. It would have maybe changed the overall total and that kind of stuff and how many attempts were made. But Joe kind of got lucky that, Jurns was injured and that
Yeah.
Enna couldn't come and steal a position from him because they did leave the door open by going that 345 to 372.5 and missing it twice. They just got lucky that no one was on point to kind of steal it. But yeah, I thought Ade was the stronger lifter. If Joe had gone to 372.5, I think Ade could have just easily done another 2.5 kilos or 5 kilos, whatever he needed to kind of take the win back. So I don't think it would have made a difference there. But you don't know going into deadlifts how strong Ade is going to be, how strong Jurns or these other guys are going to be. We don't know whether they cared about silver or bronze or that kind of stuff or only going for gold. But yeah, I think that there could have maybe been some better decision making here. If you want to, because you said they upped their opener deadlift, if you want to apply pressure on them, I was trying to figure out why 345. Because I'm thinking two different ways. One, you could just deadlift after the person. So Joe has the higher lot number, so you could have also put in 335 just to pull after him, see what kind of jump Ade makes, and then Joe can just match that or gain ground if he needs to. So I think that's one option. Hey, you change to 335 just so you're pulling after him. The other thing I would look into is if you want to have the higher total, like I said, if you want to be sitting in first place after first attempt. And so Ade was at 852.5. So Joe would have to be at 855. So then it would be 342.5. So if I was changing the opener, my idea would be I'm changing either to 335 to pull after him or to 342.5 to have a bigger total than him after opening attempts. So I don't know why they went from 340 to 345. And then, yeah, if you're already having a bad day on squat and you're having a bad day on bench press, is it then smart to bump up the deadlift opener? And like we said, how fast the competition is and how close it was at that point that maybe you fall into fourth place if you have a bad day. And also regarding this jump, if you thought you were in a battle with Ade, I don't know what they thought Ade's top end was going to be, but why do you need to do a 27.5 kilo jump? Why couldn't you go 345 to 365 and then 365 to 380 or something if you needed? You can handle a jump from 365 to 380. So I don't think he needed to do this
Mm.
almost 30 kilo jump to then go from 372.5 to 380 to put the pressure on Ade. So I don't understand that jump either. And looking at his meet history, like you said, he had this one where he got injured on squat at our nationals, but then he had a good performance here at SPD Rally. He had a good performance at nationals. He had a good performance at Worlds last year, and a good decent performance here at Advances, but maybe a little bit down. And then Sheffield went down, and it's kind of gone downhill from there. But for example, if we look at last year's Worlds, it seemed like they did better attempt selection here, where they opened up light to handle that 25 kilo jump with a lighter weight, and then had a nice 15 kilo jump. Now you're taking 372 as your second attempt when previously that was your third attempt. And so I'm not sure the adjustment there.
Okay, but now we get in really tricky territory because if you look at US Nationals to 25 with the 377 400, two down. Yeah, so this was the for 900 the pole and then the 400 for just shit and giggles. But they left the door open for Taylor Edward. Like there was a small chance that Taylor could have equalized with a third deadlift, and then they would have pulled I don't know what, probably through 377.5 or whatever. I don't know. But again, this heavy pulls in a competition. I mean, you can already see that this has never actually worked for him. You know, he has never pulled twice above 370. So this was already shaky. Then you see, like every attempt on this sheet, he's always going up, no matter what happens. He's always going up, no matter if he misses something. And so it's I think that's more of the mentality, like winning is the only thing and everything else doesn't matter. But it can backfire and it will backfire at some point. And maybe he doesn't care. So it's fine. It's just I think it's just I don't even think it's in his interest to go about his business like that. I don't think long term that will net the best results, you know. Moving up every because like so now we are really off topic and I'll stop then. But
Yeah.
if you go Clemens Corentin in France, he does the same thing. He always goes up, always moves up, no matter if he doesn't care if he bombs. He just want to win. But it is not in his best interest, like because he has one good meet in 4 years or whatever. So I'm not convinced. Circling back to Worlds, I want to point something out about third and fourth place because we have said a lot of good things about Great Britain, but this is a decision I don't understand at all for Juran's third deadlift. So they did a 10 kilo jump to catch Joe. They would have gone 365 because he was heavier. So so they didn't do this. So this was basically for I don't know what because he left the door open for Ina Ho, for Ina. Sorry, I cannot spell that name. And from how the 350 looked at the second attempt in deadlift, I was convinced he has maximum 5 more, and I wasn't the only one. We had a chat about in the TSG group. So this 360 doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know what they were thinking. So I think that was very, very lucky for them because like nobody knows Ina's top range in deadlift. Now we are closer to knowing it, but you cannot be sure. So yeah.
Yeah, with the Journs, I'm not sure exactly what the injury was and then how he felt when it came to deadlifts, how confident he felt that maybe he could get the 360 or how confident the coaches felt. But yeah, it did seem a little bit weird that, he missed his third squat, so obviously his strength isn't there. He's maybe injured or whatever. Bench then goes poorly as well. And so at this point, you're just doing whatever you can to survive, to like, hey, let's just get through the meet, let's get on the podium and move on with our lives. And maybe they're thinking, hey, we did the 17.5 kilo jump, so we can probably handle a 10 kilo jump. And also we have Anna trying to catch us from behind, so we have to put the pressure on him. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit aggressive that it wasn't enough to gain any placing on Joe, and you're just trying to fight off of fourth, and Anna's already doing the world record deadlift on his second, and we know there's times where, hey, Anna can get off the ground, but he'll lose his balance or have issues, that kind of stuff. So it's not a guarantee that he can just load whatever on the bar to win. So yeah, I would have maybe obviously, again, we're looking hindsight, but in the moment, we were also talking about it of like maybe going as conservative as possible. Like, hey, just 5 kilos, just push your total up a little bit more to have to do a Hail Mary pull to really try and catch you. Versus this, yeah, you go a little bit more aggressive on a day that's going very poorly for you. And then, yeah, you do leave that door open where Anna could just take that easier shot and get you. But, again, they got lucky and it didn't happen. Then with
Yep.
the just circling back to Joe Bornstein as well, real quick, is that yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with him because again, we're on the outside looking in, but like he's had good meets, 900, 890, 904. Then he goes to Sheffield and has this poor performance, then has a good performance here again, 892, and then goes to World and has his poor performance, 857.5. So I don't know if it's like a combination of like, hey, when his training is going well, and maybe there's also less competition, he can execute very well and do this 890 to 900 kilo total. But if training is a little bit off, and also now competition is higher, like at Worlds this year or at Sheffield, then things start progressively going bad throughout all the lifts, and he has this very low total 850. So like there's this huge gap, like you said, where he's maybe trying to be aggressive, and it leads to either 850 or 900. There's no in between of making adjustment on the day and trying to get 870, 880, those kind of things. And then the other thing maybe is for him, and everyone's different, is that he did 3 competitions in 2025 and 3 competitions in
Yeah. Wow.
2026 so far. So maybe it's just been too much for him
Yeah,
to
that's a lot.
try and peak and go all out at these competitions. And again, this is his choice because he did, for example, decided to do Avantis Houston. You didn't have to do that. And maybe by doing that meet, now that gassed him out for Sheffield. And now because you had a poor performance at Sheffield, you have to turn around and do nationals to try and get back on the team because your Sheffield total wasn't enough to maybe maintain your team spot. So now it kind of spiraled out of control where you've done these too many meets. Maybe if he had skipped advances, saved his energy for Sheffield to perform his best there, then he would have done another 900 kilo total. He could have skipped out of nationals and then rested up and then be able to do a 900 performance at World. So we don't know again what's going on with him, with his training, with his life, and everything like that. But potentially, these could be things that athletes have to think about: is how can I strategically plan out my year and pick the competitions that I need to in order to also give myself enough rest to be able to continue to progress and perform.
Yeah. I would just add again what I said before, like his approach to like your analysis was excellent. I didn't even think about that. So great job. Just think he's one dimensional as a competitor. Like again, every attempt, number always goes up. It doesn't matter what happens. I just think he needs to broaden like his horizon a little bit. I think we have been that's the most critical we have been of every lifter so far. I want to say that I really like him. I really, really do. I think he's a great presence. I just it from like because like we are making this episode because we wanted to do an in-depth analysis of attempt selection and strategies, and it's one topic I'm very passionate about. And just looking at this history, it makes me very uneasy to see. So I'm a bit more emotional about it than I would usually be because it's just I would just do it differently.
He's from Florida like me, so of course, yeah, I like him as well. He's a super nice guy whenever I talk to him. And also, I think, yeah, there's potential because if we look at this meet where he was getting called on depth, and then because he was trying to force his depth more, he ended up injuring himself
Yeah.
and losing out on the opportunity to go to Junior Worlds. You can see the adjustment he weighed and went and got all the way up to a 307.5 kilo squat and also hitting depth consistently at all these championships. So potentially this competition now, kind of like we had discussed before with Tiffany Chapon losing, coming back, maybe this will now be a new spark for him to come back and be able to perform better in competitions, be more strategic with the competition picks, and be able to get to all
Yeah.
the goal numbers he has.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back over to the women's side, and we're going to go to the 69 kilo class. And this one, our champion Cora Lagar from Italy hit a 582 kilo total. And then we had a battle of two Americans here, Janie Kovacs and Meg Scanlon for silver, with Janie winning 565 and Meg hitting 560. And then this was very high depth and very high level competition here. Jordan Bright of Ireland also hit 560, so losing out on body weight. And then right below, we can see Marta Jenner at 557.5. And then you can see a number of athletes here at 555 and 552.5. So very close that you could have been, eighth place with 552.5 or third place with 560.
So I want to point out also, like from just IPFGL points, I think this is the best session, like maybe ever, like the top 8 with 115 plus. Like if you're not at Sheffield, like the level was so high at the session, unbelievably high. I mean, I think Jason said it was a little bit of a down year for the class, but I wouldn't agree. It's just at the very top because Agatha wasn't there.
Yeah.
Carola also hitting close to a top range, which is I think 585.5 again. And so I don't want to really analyze everything in detail, but I want to say 2 things. First, because in this session there were a lot of people, and you can see it actually here, that didn't pull for podium, like Marte for Kiana, for example. Her third deadlift wasn't an attack on the podium. She knew she wouldn't get on the podium with that number. And that's the same, I think, for, I don't know, 7, who's got 7, I don't know, cannot see. I think she was from the B group. Chandler Bepp also didn't do this, and Van Gaal, I think, tried. Yeah, she tried. But I want to point out, like this, some is winning or everything, and winning or nothing, and some competitors are like podium or nothing. But in this session, actually, people were a little bit more like realistic and said, like, I cannot get there, so I just want to maximize my total. It happened to a few people. Because I think, for example, for Chandler, I think the 250 with body weight, she wouldn't have made it on the podium, I think. So, right? Anna, she would. No, she wouldn't have. No, she wouldn't have. Yeah, she wouldn't have. So, but I think this was a deliberate choice. I mean, she missed it anyway. I just want to say there is sometimes people don't pull for podium because they know it doesn't make any sense. I think Annie Nelson was the same. Like the 232.5 didn't bring her anything for the podium. I mean, look at where we are. We are at 9th place. It was so amazing. And just want to say about Carola, I mean, I just want to say, like, obviously Agatha exists, but if you just look at Open IPF, the number of competitions from Carola, there is like 7 million first place finishes, and then there is like 3 seconds and 2 thirds. I don't know how many World Championships she has now, 4 or something. Yeah, and look down here. It's equipped and raw. Like, she has a case for greatest of all time. Like, obviously Agatha exists, so we cannot say it. But look at this body of work. This is unbelievable stuff. Absolutely unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna add, kind of what you were saying as far as those final pulls is that, it's always great if you're trying to pull for first place or pull for podium, but sometimes that's not realistic. And then there's other achievements you can then go for. So some of these athletes are maybe like, hey, I want to be top 5, even if I can't be top 3, or I want to score team points for my nation, or also the individual deadlift medal. You can see here that the bronze medal was 232.5. So some of these athletes may have also been trying to pull 232.5 to try and get the bronze medal in the individual lift. So there's all these different variables that are going on as far as everyone's strategy, but also different things that you can achieve in a championship when maybe you're like, the title or the bronze medal is out of contention. So this is a very in-depth or very deep weight class. Like you said, we were talking about 9th place here for this weight class. But yeah, there's all kinds of things going on here of athletes trying to go after different things. And they may have even been going after like their own national records or different things like that as well when they picked a certain weight. So even for Chandler Babb, it wasn't going to change her getting on the podium. It wasn't going to change her overall gold medal in the deadlift, but maybe she wanted to get up into top 5 or top 4, or maybe hit some kind of personal record and national record, those kind of things. And so great weight class. And like you said, for this weight class, unfortunately, there's a guy at Sitco that's alive, and she's very incredible. And so Coral Gar didn't hit the 95% in order to make the automatic qualification for Sheffield because of that. But it was still a incredible weight class here, and she did get hit a little bit on the bench press as well. Like we were talking about, Alba Coral Gar has done 150 before, and now it's kind of dipped down a little bit to the 145 and now 137.5. So she'll have to kind of figure that out, especially for her. She hasn't had the deadlift progress that Alba's had, so she may need to kind of work on that bench press and find a way to get it back up so that then she can hit that 95% or be able to compete with Agata if she kind of comes back to the 69 kilo class in a future championship.
Yeah, from what I heard, like her body just cannot take sumo deadlift anymore, so she has to do conventional, and she's a little bit less strong there. What I want to say again, like a broader comment, when we have done it like as long as we have done. So I have been in maybe one or two battles or two or three battles where there's 4 or 5 lifters, where the placing from first to fifth or whatever is possible at the second or third deadlift. And what I've found in these situations, you just have to zoom up, like you have to forget what is happening in competition to a little bit, to a degree, and just focus on what can I do for myself. Because when you have like 4 competitors, you are not able to control all of them. And actually the math then gets really, really difficult. Like alone or even with 2 people, it gets really difficult. And I found that I have the most success if I just think objectively, what can my lifter do, and just hit this number and then just accept the outcome that comes with this.
Yeah, it definitely would have been it would have been very interesting to be the coach for like Meg Scanlon, Jordan Bright, or like Marta Jenner in this situation and
Yeah.
see what it would have been like for them. Because yeah, there's so many different lifters you're keeping track of and body weights and then changes and like, oh, you have to pull your lifter back. They're not ready to go. Oh, we put a change in, bring your lifter, start chalking them up, getting ready to go. So it can be a little bit hectic keeping track of everything, write everything down. So it would have been interesting to be one of those coaches. But yeah, if I was like Jordan Bright's coach and she has the weakest deadlift here out of the group, then I would have just thought, okay, what's the most I can get out of my lifter and get her to a total, in this case 560, and then let it go how it goes. And then for Meg, missing that second, then they have to decide, okay, well, what do we need to do? How far do we push it to get on the podium? But then also try and catch our teammates. In this case, they just did what they needed to do for the podium, and then Janie was able to kind of do an easy deadlift. So I think, for Janie, it was easy kind of being the biggest deadlifter and kind of just waiting to the end to see what to do. But for everyone else, for Meg, for Jordan, for Marta, it was probably a lot of things going on. And sometimes, yeah, you have to kind of default to the basic and say, let me focus on my lifter. What are they capable of? And then go from there.
But for Janie, we have to mention that 235 would have been enough, right? She didn't need to do 237.5. So that is a weird decision.
Yeah, you're right there. I'm not sure, maybe they weren't running the math or maybe there was like changes going in or whatever. But
Maybe
yeah,
it changes, yeah.
as soon as kind of, yeah, Meg Scanlon hit the 217.5, and then you saw like Marta wasn't coming for you with 227.5, then at that point, yeah, you should have just dropped down to 235.
But it probably was Vandal, right? Because if she would have hit, then she had 560 as well, and then they couldn't. Has she the lot number?
For who's that?
No, she was going after. Vandal was going after. Maybe they tried to play Vandal. Maybe they tried to force her to 37.5. So maybe there was actually a reason for this, actually.
Yeah, maybe it could have been this that
Yeah.
yeah, your lifter talking about, yeah, Marie Jose Vandal, is that maybe they didn't want to deadlift before her because then maybe she would have thrown on 240, 2 or whatever they need to try and outpull them, and also maybe they didn't know what Chandler Babb was going to do.
Yeah.
Maybe she would have loaded up. So yeah, I could see it maybe a case for that as
Yeah.
like, hey, if we feel very confident, let's push our total a bit
Yeah.
more to challenge those lifters to have to pull more.
Interesting situation.
Yeah. All right, let's jump back over to the men's side. We'll jump over to the 93 kilo class. Our champion from USA, William Ball, hit a 927.5 kilo total. Fairly comfortable win for him there. Our silver medalist, Christian Ayudokin from Great Britain at 900 kilos. And then third and fourth place, we had Emil Krastev from Bulgaria, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize. Amen from Algeria, both at 897.5 kilos. So, like I said, Will Ball kind of had a comfortable win, but then it was a good battle here for second, third, and fourth place. Where do you want to start
So
off?
yeah, I want to start with William Ball. Amazing. I think the 93 class is surprisingly modest with their totals. Like I think there are 7 totals over 800, and in the 83s there are 6. So there's no, it's 8 actually. Okay, but still, I feel like the class is not as deep right now as it should be. I think we should see totals in the 950 at some point at the winner. But yeah, William Ball did everything right. Great attempt selection. It was a pleasure to watch. When you're the strongest, sometimes you just have to stay in the pocket, as Joey says, and that's exactly what he did. Fourth place, Algeria. That was, I don't understand it, to be quite honest. Um, Bench press, the first was hard already, 190, so the jump to 200 was just wishful thinking, I believe. Because maybe you think you can do this, but the approach I take, and I'm pretty sure you take as well, and most people take, and I think Matt Gary also takes, is like do a secure second, like 195 maybe, and then you can see if how much is left in the tank. So there's no when it's not going as expected, maybe you shouldn't risk everything, all the marbles on their second attempt. And then the deadlift, the third deadlift is just mind-boggling because he could have just put 375, or I don't know if he could even 372.5 on the bar for second place. Depends on how much he weighed. Um,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
lighter.
yeah, he could have like just and but he has the lower lot numbers, so he needed 370.5, 375. Sorry, it's not my first language.
Hmm.
But they just put 380.5 on for the world record, which is fine if that's your primary goal. But then we have the same, and we don't have to go into much detail now. But if that is your primary goal, then why open with 350? Like if you don't care about like podium position or whatever, then go 330, 360, 380.5 to conserve strength, because the 370 looked heavy, but it looked okay. So I think if you just have I think there was a very reasonable chance that he get 380.5 if a second deadlift was just way lighter than it was. So again, they must have taken an active decision against chasing second place, or they have gotten everything wrong. But like even with a better second attempt in bench press, they would already have secured second place more or less, or put more pressure on Christian. So very weird what happened there.
Yeah, I have
And
to go ahead.
so just for Emil, the last I think um, they put 7.5 kilograms on the bar for the more for the third deadlift. I thought that was too much, but we also thought that he needs this for positioning. So maybe that was just like we have to try. But also here for Emil, I would say there's no reason to start with 340. I think their approach was actually to secure podium with the second. I don't know. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, very similar thoughts with Algeria. I'm not sure what their strategy was, what their goals were. It seems like they take a big jump from first to second, and then like a small jump here, second to third. So maybe for bench press, there was also going to do this big jump from first to second, and then maybe just do like 202.5 in a third, which is, obviously I think is not the best strategy there. And so they lost out on some kilos there. And yeah, if they had done 195, they already would have been in bronze, and then they could have challenged for silver if they wanted to. But then because they missed that, they're out on the outside looking in here in fourth place. And yeah, they weren't really trying to go for bronze or silver. They were just going for it all. And so I don't know if like, yeah, the world record was more important to them compared to getting on the podium. You would think podium would have been more important. And once Emil had missed his 362, they could have Amen could have done 372.5 and just gotten bronze and gotten on the podium. And so you would have gotten on the podium. Or you could have done, 375 or whatever and tried to challenge Christian as well. It depends on what they thought Christian had after his second attempt. But yeah, none of that happened. So I don't know why none of that happened. Fortunately for them, they still get enough as far as the unrepresented region, being from Algeria, to get to Sheffield. So he still gets to go to Sheffield and, go there and try and do the world record deadlift there and make some money, that kind of stuff. But there could have potentially been a better strategy here to get at least bronze, if not silver. And I agree with you with the meal that, they opened up a little bit too heavy. And after the second, yeah, it was kind of like a lose-lose situation. Like, you're probably not going to get the 7.5 kilos, but if you went like 2.5 kilos, Christian probably would have beat you anyways. And they kind of got lucky that, they didn't get taken from behind. They were to end up getting bronze. But it was a tough situation that, like, I feel like, yeah, no matter what you would have done, you probably still would have ended up in the same position. Maybe you could have gone with the more conservative approach just in case Christian messes up or something like that. But again, Great Britain, as we mentioned, and Christian here, incredible day here, executing on all his attempts and picking exactly what they needed to get into the silver medal position. So can't say anything better there about Christian and Team GB. We can jump ahead now to the women's 76. Sorry, jumped ahead. This one, it was an interesting battle because Cranen was dealing with the injury coming in, and we didn't know where she was going to be, but she ended up winning the gold medal here, 625.5 kilos. And then Zuzana kept up with her for quite a while here from Poland and ended up with 602.5 kilos for the silver medal. And then Mara from Germany here ending up with 587.5 kilos for the bronze medal. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so Crennan, incredibly, I mean, she was injured before, but she got rid of it. It seems right on time. Susanna is, I mean, she's 19 or 20. It's absolutely incredible that we have two Polish talents of this level now. It's unbelievable. When you look at her third deadlift, you I mean, she missed it, but she wouldn't have caught Crennan with this deadlift anyway. I mean, very, very. So again, like, that, I mean, they missed, but still they decided we cannot catch her. It's too much. So I think that is also just sometimes the smart thing to do. Mara from Germany, she is now with this meet in Germany in a league of her own. She has no peer group anymore. Like, there were 2, 3 lifters that were close to her. Now she is number one. She is training 7 times a week, working full time since half a year, coaching on the side. She is absolutely incredible. I can only say that from Europeans, they, like she and Great Britain and France, they all had 565.5 or 567.5. They were all improved from Europeans 3 months ago. And I didn't catch it live actually, but I heard that there was a very, very smart play from Germany with attempt changes against Great Britain. But I have to actually leave it here. I cannot really. What I can say, they had 242.5 as their third before, and I think basically Great Britain changed their third deadlift as well, and I think they wanted to force Mara to 245, I think, but they were like directly afterwards, like in the moment they changed it, the Germany handed in the change directly so that they wouldn't be caught with a weight that they cannot lift. So I wasn't there. I just want to say that I heard people were very impressed by this, and I think the German team is actually now very good in attempt selection or in a general game day strategy. I'm German, so I just want to talk a little bit about this. High level of lifting, great podium. Crennan looks even scary for Agatha, to be quite fair, in the long term. Who knows where Susanna can land. And for Mara, I mean, it's not out of the cards that she can become a world champion at one point, maybe in a year where the class is not that stacked or whatever. But like, she made 22.5 kilos progress from last year or whatever. So, I mean, we will see.
Yeah, I think it was overall a great battle here for first versus second, even though it looks kind of big on paper, 23 kilos. it was close kind of going through it because like at any point if Cranon had messed up, then Zuzana had that momentum going. And especially this 20-kilo jump, this is
Yeah.
very critical. If for some reason Cranon had messed that up, then all of a sudden you're at 595 and then Zuzana's gonna get you. And so that was really critical. That kind of like almost was the dagger. We weren't sure, how much more Zuzana had after the second. And then, they did a great job here for Cran doing another 10 kilos. And then basically, Zuzana and them kind of pulled down and said, hey, let's just go for the world record deadlift at that point because we're not going to be able to catch up on the total. And then, yeah, it was a good battle. Like adding some information here, you said, as far as Canada trying to catch up here with the
Oh, Jesus.
275, and then also with Great Britain trying to catch up here with the 245. So it was, again, another class where there was a lot of depth and there were some pulls at the end to try and pull for the win. But again, Germany did a good job here maximizing their total and putting pressure on these other people to try and pull for the placing.
Yeah, great class. And, 76 attempted 275 deadlift, and she had it close to lockout. I did not see that coming. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, that was crazy. We'll jump over to the 105. So we might not have to break this down as much, but Anthony McNaught from USA wins fairly comfortable here, 980 kilos. Second place was Anatoly from Ukraine, 935. And then it was a good battle here. Tying him was Regin from Denmark here with also 935. And then just below him, Emil Norling from Sweden at 932.5.
Yeah, I mean, we are a little bit running out of time also as well. I don't have much to add. I think McNaughton is just, he must be a very explosive lifter because it looks very easy what he's doing, but it probably isn't. But I still think Sheffield 1,000 kilos is maybe a goal. Anatoly struggling with his squat, which was a little bit unfortunate, but having his grip problems in check. Yeah, Emil is just where he always lands, to be quite honest. Like, he is good, but maybe 120s. Like, I don't think he can really increase his total a lot in the 105s. But he's always competitive. Yeah, and Regan is obviously on the up and coming, and Nathaniel as well. So, yeah, just great class. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'll just quickly go ahead.
And the French lifter pulling 397.5 for the win. For a podium, which was close. Amazing.
Yeah, well, I won't spend too much time on it, but yeah, good battle. Anthony McNaught, like we said, kind of cruised to the win, but then from there, the podium was a good battle. And Anatoly, missing his opener squat where like his knee caved in and he like lost the bar. People were like, uh-oh, is he done? And then missing his second, I believe, on depth and coming back and getting the third. It was a rough start for him, but then he really turned it around, made all his benches, grip held up, made all his deadlifts, and was able to put up a solid 935. And then from there, he got lucky that there was so much of a battle below him too, that people didn't try and go and beat him because he was the lighter lifter. So it was kind of the battle of Regan versus Emil Norling. And in this case, Regan kind of had some, I think got called on depth on his third squat, so that held him back a little bit. I think Emil just missed it on strength. And then it came down to his final deadlifts. And in this case, Emil Norling, who has a big deadlift, happened to be going against someone else who has a big deadlift as well and did this big jump from 365 to 382.5 to beat him. I don't remember this pull, so I don't know if he could have done 385 to beat Anatoly, but I think they were just happy with just getting on the podium at that point based on how the day was going and him being a younger lifter.
I really don't know because they had the French lifter in mind, obviously. I can just say it was very hard for me to judge his top end strength, and I think with 382 they actually found it. I think that was basically what he had, and nothing more. So maybe a little bit lucky, but also very, very strong. Yeah.
Jumping over to the 84s, I think this was a little bit more of an interesting battle here. We had Amanda Lawrence kind of announced late that she pulled out due to an injury, so that kind of took away the battle of Amanda versus Carlina, but it now opened up the weight class for a new champion. And some people maybe thought Carlina was going to have maybe a somewhat comfortable win if she can cruise. She was moving up a weight class, didn't have to worry about weight cut or anything like that. But as you can see, it was a little bit of an upset again. Ziana Azarea from Great Britain totaled 620 kilos. And then Carlina from New Zealand, second place at 607.5 kilos. And then Nicolette Ziegler from USA getting the bronze medal with 590 kilos.
Yeah, really not much to say here. I mean, Kalina's squats, like first on depth, second jury overruled it, third she just took a step forward. So to be honest, like we were talking about this class a lot in our club before, and we all were struggling to see how Carlina can really hit depth on squat with like very comfortably with Wayne 84 at like 155 centimeters. And it actually played out like this, to be frank. So I'm not convinced that this is the weight class for her. I'm really not. Because, I mean, deadlift blockouts also don't get easier when your quads are just getting bigger and bigger. Saria, just perfect competition. I mean, she missed the third bench, but it was a 2.5 kilo jump. So in most cases, some argue if you take a 5 kilo jump, maybe you have preserved enough strength. That is a philosophical question at that point. She got everything, world record in deadlift. Very interesting, and an unexpected champion here, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Nicolette opened with her max end on deadlift, which was kind of scary.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you guys were thinking about it when it came to Carlina, because my initial thought was, hey, she's got like a 620s total, and then she also is moving up a weight class, so her total should be the same or get even better. So I was like, okay, she might be able to hit 630s and maybe 640s and be able to challenge Amanda if Amanda was going to be there, and it didn't play that way. And it's interesting that you said the body weight then can negatively affect depth, and she got hit on depth on squat as you expected on the first, and then was able to sink it on the second. The third, we don't know if it actually would have gotten called on depth or not, but then she ended up losing her balance on the way up. And she is a very fast descender,
Yeah.
and I don't know if maybe she was going too fast on that third and it threw out of position on the way up, and that's why she lost it. But yeah, it was just interesting to see how her squat wasn't where I thought it was going to be for her being in this weight class, and that really hurt her. Like as soon as we saw, hey, she's only coming away with 215, I'm like, oh man, she's in trouble. She did
Yeah, I
well
mean,
on the bench press, but yeah, I was maybe expecting a little bit more on bench press. And then once it came down to deadlift, Zion at that point is kind of executing on the day, and she has the bigger deadlift, and at that point it was just a huge challenge for Carlina of what can she do to kind of stay in the race and hope that Zion messes up, and she just wasn't able to get that third deadlift. Not that it would have mattered anyways, other than maybe if Zion missed on pressure, a pressure situation, because she was going to beat her anyways. So it was an interesting battle there. Not what I was expecting for my fantasy powerlifting team. I last minute switched some of my team and put Carlina in, thinking she's going to get the gold medal and get me points, and that did not happen.
I want to shout out to Anna from Germany, 9th place, which is my lifter. She went 8 out of 9. She had a terrible day. Like, training was good. It wasn't spectacular, but it was good. And then as soon as I saw the first squat, I thought, oh my God. And then the bench opener is already 5 kilo reduced from the plan. So it was planned to go with 115. So they did an amazing job handling this. She had 2 exceptional competitions in December and March. And what we were discussing with Joe Bornstein before, every 3 months a competition, you cannot expect that it just works and works and works out all the time. That's not how powerlifting works. We both know that. So it was just not her time this year. Next year, let's see what we can do.
Yeah. All right, jumping back to the men's side for the 120 kilo class, we had the return of Rondell Hunt from Trinidad and Tobago. He wins fairly comfortably with a 1,000 kilo total, but again, there was a battle here for the podium. Joshua here from Great Britain ends up with 965. Tying him in total was Joseph from Trinidad and Tobago at 965. And then below him, trying to chase them as well, guys like ETN from Lebanon and Ashton from USA. So give me your thoughts here.
Okay, so Rondell just the strongest, obviously. Surprisingly, he was nearest top end in squat and bench press because he has total 1065 before, I think. So yeah, we will see. Um, Second and third, they both battled each other last year at Junior Worlds with a different outcome. Then Joseph won, and now, yeah, the British lifter stroke back. Joshua. So yeah, and then I mean Ashton was just injured, I fear. So I mean in his bench, well, it's not so much below his normal bench, but like his deadlift, there was no chance then. And Etienne, again, we had this a couple of times, and we will have it once more. His world record is 402.5 in deadlift, and he puts it on at the second attempt. And you can see from the totals, there was no need to do this at all. Absolutely no need. And the question we have to ask ourselves here, more than with Michael Sabic in the 59s, like, when you do this for your second, where do you think you end up? Do you want to do 415 for your third? I mean, we all know that's not in the cards because we have seen him lifting for 5 years or whatever now. And he is amazing, absolutely super strong, but there's no need to open with 372.5 and then go 4-3. And he missed the podium because of that. It was absolutely unnecessary. He basically gifted the podium to the other guys. Like he could have just waited and then he could have pushed him in a good position with a reasonable second deadlift at second place and then wait for the other two guys what they are doing and then still would have the last words with something below 400. So I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there with Etienne. I'm not sure what his goal was, and maybe his goal was that, yeah, he wanted to go for first or nothing. And so he's like, okay, I'll do 403 on the second, get into the 980 total, and then from there try and go into, 415, 420 or whatever to try and catch up to Rondell. But that seems like a big ask based on his history where his PR, yeah, is 401.5. He's missed 411 before. Rondell was on point, at that point, Rondell passed on his third, but he could have done more on his third, and you had to pull 430, to keep up. Go ahead.
And just to intersect, even if that was the plan, after you miss 240 on your third bench, you have to adjust the plan because without these 230, this is not going to work. You're not going to pull for first. So, adjust. You cannot just make 7.5 kilograms on deadlift out of thin air. Like this doesn't happen. So, yeah, just again, adjust on the day for what happened. Have a
Yeah,
plan B.
and all these other guys on opening deadlifts were in the 930s, and Etienne on the opener was at 950. So you don't need to
Yeah.
be opening up at 372. You could be opening up with 362, 355 or something like that, and kind of like pace yourself to save energy, but also pace yourself to maybe lock in a podium spot or even silver, and then try and pull for the win on the third. So you could have maybe done 360. If 360 moves well, jump to 380, 385 or whatever. And then at that point, you probably have second place locked up or at least a podium spot. And then from 385, you can go for 405, 410 if you want to try and put the pressure on Rondell. So, yeah, interesting there by Etienne. And Ashton, great start for him with the world record squat. With bench, yeah, it's just been a thing for years now where due to a previous injury, his bench just hasn't moved. Long term, he needs to figure out a way to get that bench up to be competitive. But in this championship, I was like, okay, he got the world record squat. Bench is kind of going the way it's going. He has the potential to be in the fighting in the podium. And then something just went off in deadlift. I don't know if he just gassed out or his deadlift was bad in training or whatever, but it just didn't look good on his second. And I forget if he changed from conventional to sumo on his third, and it looked like a little bit better, but it still was enough. So I'm not sure what was going on there. And yeah, he just couldn't keep up in the fight.
Yep. Nothing more to add.
All right, let's jump back over to the women's side. Another interesting battle here in the 84 plus. category. Brittany Schlater from Canada is your champion with 756.5 kilos. Silver medalist Aquin, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that one, from Great Britain at 700 kilos. Bronze medalist also from Great Britain, Toyosi, with 657.5 kilos. And then to mention, the original battle was going to be Brittany versus Sonita, that they've been battling for a number of competitions, but Sonita bombs out on deadlift, so she gets a no total and then doesn't get onto the podium.
Yeah. So for Sonita, first of all, I don't know if you saw this, but the third squat, when she went down, it touched the thigh of the spotter, which probably prevented depth, which is just very unfortunate. It happens. There was a lot of hate for the spotter on social media. It happens. It's very, very unfortunate. And the thing is, there is really no coming back from this, because even if they had granted her a fourth attempt, she would have had like 3 minutes after, she had to do 334 again. The chance of this working out are so slim. Like, this is a squat that has never been, no one even has close to done it on the women's side before, that you can do this 3 minutes after and then be successful. So this was extremely unfortunate, because that is kilos that definitely missed on her total. But then she is not a so strong deadlifter that she could open with 260, in my opinion. She got a 2-1, but the jury overruled it. But the story here for me is that the people I talked to, or when we discussed it, the general sentiment was, we were surprised that she didn't bomb out before in a competition, because her deadlifts lockouts have always been very sketchy. I think in one Sheffield, I don't know which year, I think 2 years back, she should have bombed out, but for some reason they gave her a second attempt, which looked worse than the first she didn't get. And I think it's just misguided. It's the same theme that we have now all the time. Get a very, very secure first deadlift in. And maybe in her mind, or in their mind from the team, 260 is their deadlift. But if you look at Open IPF, like at her competition history, you can clearly see that it is not on the bottom. Yeah, so I mean, look at her history. I mean, she has got to 75 once, but more often than not, she has not. So yeah, I mean, and I don't think these calls were specifically harsh. I just think she overestimates her deadlift strength. It's or they, not her, but the team. It just looks untidy, and when a lift that looks untidy, you are giving yourself in the hand of the referees. And if you are unlucky, as she was this time, then you will have referees that don't agree with how your deadlift looks. So you need to go down to a weight which is good. And also, like from a psychological perspective, as a judge myself, a referee, if I see a very clean first attempt from a lifter, in my mind, I'm more favorable for the second attempt, because I see that she can do it. And then maybe I'm inclined to see, there was a little bit of a not super convincing a second, but it's fine. But like if the first already looks sketchy, I will be looking very closely at the second. It's just the nature. It's like psychology. It's not to harm anybody, but it's what judges, referees are looking for. And she got called out on it this time.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts. It was unfortunate that the spotter had the leg in the way for that third squat. I don't know if they even noticed it. Like, I don't know if she noticed that she like hit a stopping point to be able to go complain to the jury and even try and get a relift. But I think they were just arguing the depth to try and just get that lift to be good. But obviously we weren't there, so we don't know what happened. And then because you lose out on those 13 kilos, then that does change a little bit as far as the deadlifts, like how close you are, maybe how aggressive you have to be. So if that guy's leg wasn't in the way and Sonita got to depth and had those 13 kilos, then would it have changed their strategy for deadlift, and maybe they wouldn't have gone up from first to second attempt. But even then, at that point, that lift is done. When you go into deadlift, when you get called on the first one for lockout, and you already have the world record squat and you're in a battle for first versus second, I would have just repeated the weight, try and get into the competition, secure your world record, at least lock up second place, and then you can take a bigger jump if you need to try and go for the gold medal. And like you said, her best is 275. I thought the temp selection from Sheffield here was great. You could even gone 250, 265, 275. Obviously, just depends on what the battle was at that point for that competition. But I thought this was a great opener, 250, to be able to get to 275. And also, if there's any issues with lockout, then you can always make the adjustment. But yeah, 260 is a little bit too much. And also, I think another thing that maybe some people don't want to talk about, but I think it's important both on the men's and women's side, and you mentioned a little bit about Carlina as well, is the increases in body weights can have lots of pros, but can also have some cons. So for a lot of lifters, when they start increasing their body weight, it might help the squat go up, it might help the bench press go up. And Sonita has gone to incredible heights with her squat here, but then it may negatively affect the deadlift because then it may make the lockout more challenging. And so you have to factor that in, that maybe you have to be more conservative on the deadlift and make sure you get that lockout out. And I wonder how her deadlift changes, like her deadlift like changes when she's going from 75 kilos to 125 to 175. Does it look questionable across the board, or does it get worse as you get closer to your max and your grip might be slipping or you get stuck on your thighs, those kind of things? Because then again, that's another reason to open up conservative, get one in for sure, and then push from there. But not to take away from our champion Brittany, she executed an excellent day, hitting the 302.5 bench, squat, hitting the 165 bench, and then she, hit the 289 deadlift, had the win locked up at that point because Sonita had bombed out on her third, and so they just tried to do 291.5. Or actually, they loaded up and they didn't actually do it. She just went out there and just said thank you to everyone. She didn't even have to try. So really, she had the perfect day. She didn't actually miss this weight. 756.5 kilos is an incredible total. And she just executed very well. Team Canada in general across the week executed very well as well.
Yeah, and Brittany against Sonita is the rivalry of our time, I think, on the women's side. I think they have faced off 8 times now. It's like 5-3 for Brittany, which again, like, just a little one call goes differently, and it could be the other way around, like even with the squats. So it's amazing battle. And also then we have the British lifter in second place with the new world record in deadlift.
Yeah, because if we take if Sonita had gotten that third squat of 334 and then also got her opener deadlift in, that would have put her at 757. So she would have been right there with Brittany. If she got in that third squat and then just repeated her deadlift to kind of get it in, then Brittany would have to have pulled another attempt. So yeah, it's like one or two little things can make it look like it's a big difference in the results. But yeah, they've been going back and forth for a number of championships right now, and it's probably going to continue to happen going forward. And then finally, we have the 120 plus on the men's side. Jesus Oliveras does an incredible thing by winning another world title. We can go over a second how many world titles he's won, but he got 1095. Second place, Victor from Ukraine with 1042.5. Close battle here for bronze. AJ from Great Britain, 1032.5. And you can see right below him, fourth place, both at 1030.
So to mention here, fifth place, Ray Bowring, was in the C flight, so he had to do it before. He did very well, just like the third deadlift didn't work out. Fourth place, Temur. So we have had this story now a few times. Just think, like, we don't have to talk about it. Just think Etienne, and it's the same story. Like, it's unnecessary. Why would you do it like this? 413.5 was, I think it was 1 to 2 out, I know, like it was locked out, and then 430 didn't even get it up anymore because the second is so heavy that you have not enough strength or not enough time to recover for the third. So same story as with Etienne. He doesn't, but again, like, he has added body weight again, and now he's much stronger, so it just seems that the open class is the one for him. And then, yeah, like, finally there is some competitors for Jesus on the horizon. They are not there yet. I mean, that's clear to see, but they're getting closer. He is not super alone anymore. And like with his opening deadlift, he secured the Sheffield invite. And then, yeah, 392. Maybe it wasn't there on the day, or maybe he was mentally already checked out. I don't know. But cool that this class is also progressing.
Yeah, having the 5 athletes here above 1,000 kilo total. Like you said, with Timor, yeah, the attempt selection strategy here was interesting as far as placing. If they cared about placing, they could have gone with 402.5 or something like that, or even just gone you know 390, 400, and then whatever they needed for placing, or even opened up later. Interesting with Timor as well. He was posting on Instagram where he like did a local competition a couple weeks ago and pulled like 410, and then like 4 or 5 days out from the
Yeah,
world championship he pulled like 400 and for his final heavy deadlift, and people were like, this kind of seems like some max effort deadlifts that you're doing kind of going into the world championship. So unfortunately he gets 390 and people are like, see, I told you. So interesting there with Jesus. Yeah, I don't know if maybe at that point he had already had one and everything like that, so he wasn't concerned, but he did have the grip issues. I don't remember his opener, but I think people were saying that it was kind of close in his opener too. Like he got the down
yeah,
command and brought
yeah,
it down, but if they had held it longer, it may have been issue. So it was kind of close there too. So again, something he continues to need to work on and have to be careful that people are catching up to him. And yeah, the reason I kind of bring that up too, which I'll go over for a second into our IPF history here, is that it can be hard to be at the top across all weight classes, but especially like in the super heavyweight class, we can see here that like, Ray Williams had won 5 in a row, and I can make this bigger as well for people that are watching can kind of see the numbers here, is that Ray won from 2014 to 2018 and people thought he was unstoppable. And then he gets sick, bombs out in 2019, hasn't been the same since. Now Jesus beat that streak. Jesus now has 6 in a row. But again, we might think is unstoppable until the day he finally like something happens, whatever like that. So you always have to know that like, hey, you are still human, no matter what lifter you are, what weight class you are, someone can beat you on any day. And so yeah, continually needs to work on some things to make sure he can stay at the top if he wants to continue to compete and keep racking up these world titles.
couldn't agree more.
Uh, Jumping over real quick, just to look at some of the other things before we kind of finish off here. We can look at the teams for the women's side. Like I said, US has been dominant for many years. They lost early on in 2013. They didn't have a team in 2021, but they've won all the other years. And now Great Britain comes in with the upset. And if we look at like previous years, Great Britain wasn't even second or third best team, and now they jumped all the way up to best team. So great job there from Great Britain. We can look at some of the best lifters. Brittany Schlater has been like second best lifter. Now she becomes best lifter. Tiffany Chapon has been best lifter. She got second, and Alba Bostrom here third. On the men's side, as we said, US again has been dominant. Early on, Russia was dominant with Fedosenko and these other lifters. But now US has kind of been dominating, even though we only won 4 weight classes, still won. And you can see now it's kind of been very even the last 2 years. USA, Great Britain, and France. So we'll see if another team starts bringing some more depth on the men's side and developing athletes and come in and maybe kind of stealing one of these top 3 team spots. And then, as we said, Austin Perkins, clear best in the world. He wins another best lifter here to add to his list. You can see Fedosenko has won 4. Ray has won 2. Anatoly has won 2. Now Austin has won 3. And then Ade here, second best lifter, and Will Ball here cruising to third best lifter.
That's a great table. I need to steal it from you.
Yeah, I like to keep track of some of my history. So here I have like each of the weight classes as well to kind of see the breakdown between weight classes. So here we can see, the Brittany, Bonica, Brittany, Sonita, Brittany. So it's been an interesting battle there in 84s that we were just talking about.
Crazy that Sonita only has one. Like it feels like she should have more. But
The other ones were Sheffield, I guess.
yeah.
And then on the men's side, you can see we have like repeats here in the lower weight classes, but then we have like some new guys here in 83s and 93s and the 120s. Anthony McNaughton going back to back, he might start developing as a good champion in the IPF here in the 105 kilo class.
Yeah, his main competitor is in the US. Like here, random Asian dude, or how it's running Korean dude. I don't know how is he called? Kenan Lee?
Kenyon Lee, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then Ashton, bounces around between weight classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here we can see, Sergey's still the top dog, but Jesus coming up with 6 titles. And on the women's side, Bonica and Kimberly Wofford on top. I thought Amanda was going to catch up, but obviously she had a injury, and so she's going to have to wait. But you got Joy and Tiffany here at 5 titles starting to gain some ground as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. So some always stay on top, but as you said before, like you don't really at the moment it happens like at some point just someone else comes along or you cannot get your top end anymore and then the whole weight class changes. So it happens quick. We don't know when it happens. We will see if Amanda is back. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we finish up?
Well, just that we took like half an hour longer than we wanted to. So we apologize. We hope it has been educational and informative. Actually, I think this turned out great, to be honest. I think this was really fun and informative. So I hope everyone else thinks the same.
Yeah, hopefully people enjoyed it. Yeah, it took a little longer than I wanted because we did our overall thoughts on the championship and then started breaking down some of the weight classes. So hopefully people enjoy that introduction of just some overall concepts of everything and how things may change going forward or even continue, like how fast these sessions are. It may continue to be 2.5 hour sessions that people need to adjust versus Sheffield might be 5 hour sessions and you have to kind of adjust your numbers for that versus a world championship. And then, yeah, hopefully people got some insights from the weight classes of how we maybe do things differently and what we're looking at as far as body weights and lot numbers and what the competitors are doing and all this kind of stuff. If people liked it, as always, you can drop in the comments below whether you enjoyed this, whether you want to hear us do breakdowns of future championships. And as always, you can leave us a 5-star review for our podcast, help us to get out there to more listeners. And if you want to obviously see Henrik on again, let us know in the comments what you want him to come on and talk about next. And again, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Again, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.